The hour is about 9:01, so I will call this quarterly board meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order. Welcome, everybody. After a couple of big days, we had early birds this morning. We have assembled pretty quickly, so welcome all. As I said last night, it was great to see everybody's faces for our SOAR celebration. I know Chancellor will talk about last night a little bit more, but to our two colleges of the year and our faculty and students and staff, congratulations, a heartfelt congratulations. And to Chris and Carol and all the team that put this together, again, our heartfelt thanks. That's why I was joking about the need for caffeine this morning. I'm not quite sure how you all are still standing, but we are grateful. And we will, after about noontime today, hopefully we will disperse and you guys can crash maybe for the evening. But thank you so much. I know it's a lot of work, but very well done. With that, Mariah, why don't you call the roll for us?
I'll be happy to. For our regents who are in the boardroom, when I call your name, you can simply respond with present. For our regents who are participating virtually by Teams, we will need you to answer those two questions in accordance with TCA 844-108C3. Those two questions, as a reminder, are: can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, then you can simply respond yes to both questions. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present with the room with the regent. Governor Lee. Regent Apple.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Burdine.
Here.
Regent Duckett.
Here.
Regent George.
Here.
Regent Gill.
Here.
Regent Green. Here. Regent Hatch.
Here.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Here.
Regent House.
I am here, I am alone, and I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Powers.
Here.
Regent Reed. Here. Vice Chair Reynolds. Here. Commissioner Schwinn. Regent Shelton.
Here.
Regent Thompson. Regent Farland.
Here.
Regent Wamp.
Here.
And Regent White.
Here.
Madam Chair, your board is assembled and we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. To any media or folks watching us on the live stream, welcome. And just a reminder, we are being live streamed, and the microphone reminder of obviously we need to punch it to speak. We need the red light, obviously. So just a quick reminder. If there are no objections, let's turn to our minutes, and we have 3 sets of minutes. December 9 from our regular quarterly board meeting. We had 2 special called meetings, December 20 and January 31. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, you'll recall that we have been approving these by unanimous consent since this is of routine and non-controversial nature. But if anybody objects to that approach and wants to have an individual vote, we can certainly take a roll call vote. If there is no objection, then the minutes are adopted. Thank you all. Chancellor, your report of interim action.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The interim action report was included in the materials made available to all board members prior to our meeting today. This report constitutes a record of business transacted by the Office of the Chancellor since the previous quarterly meeting of the board. And Madam Chair, pending any questions, I recommend the board's approval of the report of interim action.
Any questions for Chancellor on the report? If not, once again, since this is an item of a routine nature that we see every quarter, if there are no objections, may we adopt this too by unanimous consent? Hearing no objections, this item is approved by unanimous consent as well. Joey Hatch, you have a committee report for us from Audit Committee of March 8th.
Okay, thanks, Vice Chair Reynolds. The Audit Committee met in regular session on March 8th, 2022 to review and recommend approval of the following items: external reviews and internal audit reports, system-wide internal audit updates, LGI University updates, President's and Chancellor's expense reports for fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 2022 internal audit plan revisions, and new internal audit charters. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the March 8th, 2022 meeting of the audit committee as presented.
Thank you, sir. I need a second to his motion, please. Second. Thank you, Regent Green. Any comments or discussion on audit committee meeting and minutes? If not, this does require a roll call vote, so we're coming back to Secretary Perry.
Regent Apple,
Aye.
Regent Burdine,
Aye.
Regent Duckett, Regent George,
Aye.
Regent Gill,
Aye.
Regent Green, Regent Hatch,
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher,
Aye.
Regent Powers,
Aye.
Regent Reed,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
I'm going to check, Commissioner Schwinn, are you on the line? And Regent Thompson? Regent Varlin? Regent Wamp? Regent White?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Chancellor, you are up to talk about SOAR, and we have a great presentation from some of our most important partners this morning. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And as all of you are aware, we did hold our SOAR Gala last night. And what a special night. And again, thank you to all of the team members here that worked so hard to pull that off last night. You did an incredible job, and we are so thankful for all the work that went into that. I want to particularly congratulate Walter State and Tcap Elizabethton for being our colleges of the year. As y'all will recall, there are metrics that we use. I didn't go into detail on that last night. I didn't just pick my favorites. We do look at the numbers, we look at the data, we look at their improvements in all areas, and those are two outstanding colleges. So if we could please give them a round of applause, and if our two presidents would please stand. We are so proud of and for you. We know that you will carry that trophy around proudly and make us continue to be proud of the great work that you're doing. I'd also like to take a moment and just publicly talk about our sponsors for the event last night because they are so critical to the success of making that happen. The Ayers Foundation, Blue Cross Blue Shield, D2L, AT&T, Follett, Denark, Orcutt Winslow, Malek Media, Barbara McMurray Architects, Alliance Bernstein, Hip Hughes, LLC. Again, we could not have done that event without their gracious and generous support to us. So if you didn't make it this year, please put it on your schedule for next year because you really missed an outstanding event, and we plan to do it again. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you a very special partner that we have, more than just partners, but friends. We have been in this work together for some time now. We have quarterly meetings where we discuss what's happening with both of the Ayers partnership and with TBR, and always are constantly looking for ways to improve that partnership. But today, Susan Ayers is here to talk to you about the Scholars Program and the really heart and essence of what they do and the extreme success and impact that they have had on students across this state and how that has enlarged and grown and really the great partnership and the work that they do to get students to us and through us, as they say all the time. So Susan, if I could turn it over to you and Mike to give this presentation.
I'm going to need the mic, I guess. Susan Rhodes, Executive Director of the Ayers Foundation, and Mike Meadows, Director of Post-Secondary Success. I feel like we are in a room full of people that know this story and will probably chime in and help us a little bit along the way. So feel free. There's a lot of friends in the room that have been with us a long time and understand the program. A lot of you also in this room know Mr. and Miss Ayers really well, and the heart of the foundation is really important to us. We are a family foundation, and we carry the morals and ethics of our founders every day with us. We are mission-driven but student-focused, so everything that happens within our organization, just like TBR, we have the lens of what is the right thing for students, even if it's harder for us, if we have to go an extra mile or sleep fewer hours like you all have done this week, that's what we're going to do, because highlighting students and the work that they've done is mission critical. So just a little background about the Ayers Foundation Scholars Program. It was began in 1999 by Mr. Jim Ayers. And so many of you, I would not do this story justice if I didn't say he started this program because he felt like education was what opened doors for him. And access to higher education didn't come easy for other students that graduated from Decatur County at the time. And so once he became successful, he wanted a way to give back to his hometown. And so he started the Ayers Scholars Program at Riverside High School. He didn't want this program to just be for the best and the brightest. He wanted this to be for every student that attended the high school. So he came up with a phenomenal plan to put a college access counselor that would specifically serve every single student in the high school, no application. If you go to the high school, we're going to be talking to you, we're going to be working with you. So we have college access counselors in every high school that we serve, and we start working with students in 8th grade and follow them all the way through post-secondary completion. This is a very unique structure because we're breaking through several silos, the K-12 to higher ed, and then also higher ed to workforce. We follow our students throughout their entire path. We work with their families, their friends, their aunts, their uncles, whoever they bring in with them. We're going to assume they're a partner in this journey with us, and sometimes it does take a village. So the program has shown dramatic success in increasing college going rates, retention, and completion. And we do serve primarily low-income, first-generation college students in rural areas. That's one of the key components, is that we do really focus on those communities that are at risk and distressed. Like I said, 100% of the students enrolled at our high schools receive our services. So from the first time we meet, if you say, "No thanks, Miss Susan, I'm not interested," it's like, okay, that's wonderful, I'll see you again tomorrow. Because we're going to make sure that you have the opportunity. At the end of the day, if that's not the path you choose, we want to make sure we don't close any doors without having all of the information. We currently are working in 21 high schools in Tennessee, and so 2 of those are in Missouri as well. So we're across 2 states right now, and that's around 16,000 students that we're serving 8 through post-secondary. Every student has access to higher education and an individualized plan with a college access counselor. This is not a cookie-cutter model. We meet every single student exactly where they're at and come up with an individual plan for that student. No two ever look the same, I can assure you. So our model provides the one-on-one advising to students and a parent or guardian on college selection, college application, career pathways, financial aid. As many of you know sitting in this room, financial aid always seems to be the big barrier. We address it first, remove it, educate on, we're going to take away that excuse. We are so fortunate to be in Tennessee and have so many opportunities for our students to have an affordable education as long as they understand the path and process to get the financial aid and then how to use that financial aid wisely to cover books and supplies and other places that they can pull from funds. We never want financial aid to be the stumbling block for our students. And that's a tough conversation sometimes, especially for our middle income students. This is an overview of the mentoring and retention services that we provide. The mentoring services really happen in 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grades. We're doing college campus visits. We're going into the classroom. We're really talking about how GPA and ACT is going to impact your higher education opportunities. College campus visits, I will say, are the carrot that we dangle that really get students engaged. So in addition to the one-on-one advising, we try to take them on a really fun campus visit. And I know there's a lot of people in this room that have our students on their campus every year. So thank you for that. We hope they normally act. Okay. And then our retention services. So you will have your dedicated college access counselor that works with you in 8th grade and follows you through post-secondary completion, so they know your story. This is a lifelong career that we hire our counselors for. We want one continuous support person with you throughout your entire journey. You don't need to come back and tell Miss Susan your story 5 times while you're in high school, and then Mr. Meadows take over and you have to reinvent the wheel with him. We want that one continuous contact that understands you, that knows you, and can quickly meet the needs that you have. Turn it over to Mike at this point. Mike's our data guy.
So what the AIRS Foundation really wants to do is remove all barriers for our students. And we want to help them, kind of meet that potential. Well, best fit, if you will. I don't care if that's Knoxville, Vandy, Tcap, community college, the local dental school. We want to help them best fit. So now it's time to talk some numbers, all right, which everybody loves. But how do we get these numbers? And so one thing we do to track our students, we do it several different ways. One way we do it is through Clearinghouse. Now, there's other reports that come out, like the TX Fact Book and the State Report Card. And those are good numbers, and that's a tool, but we do things a little different. For instance, when we do Clearinghouse, we use name, social, birthday. Because there could be another Mike Meadows out there with my same birthday that didn't go to college or went to a different school. So we use every single identifier we can to really track that student. Some schools don't report, like let's say your Tcaps. So what we do with that is we actually follow the money. We will log into the state site and see, did you get water and AFI? Because everybody goes through TCAPs want to get water and AFI or Tennessee Promise, whatever the case may be. So any students not found through Clearinghouse, we then look through E-Grants. Did you get HOPE, get Tennessee Promise, did you get an AFI? For those rest students we can't find, well, then we start reaching out to the student and we want some type of verification. That verification could be a transcript, it could be a student schedule. Some schools, it's just them with their badge in front of the school because maybe they don't have a schedule or a transcript. But so we really go through every single one of our students one by one to ensure that if we say they're going to school A, we have proof they're going to school A, because if we're ever called on our numbers, we want to make sure that we can back those up. Currently, we are working with over 16,000 students. Our college going rate for last year was 82%. Our one-year retention rate, so that's students who start in the fall, who make it on through for a year, that's 80%. If you look at the 76% number, that was actually verified through a third party of our class of 2015. 76% of our students that went, either some are still in, but most graduated, got a certificate, diploma, they got some kind of credential. That 52% number, that's the number of students we have going to a TBR school. So we have plenty, of our students, coming out to you guys, whether it's a Tcap or a community college. So we love TBR schools. Next is a little look at some of our degrees awarded, and you can see the breakdown between AAS, bachelor's, doctorate, master's. The AIRS labor workforce is kind of like our degree cluster. That's where you can see where our students that have a credential, kind of where they fit in the grand scheme of things. We didn't want to put every single major because that'd be way too big of a pie chart. So we kind of broke those down into different little clusters and kind of dumped those students in there so you can kind of see where our kids are getting their degrees.
Thank you, Mike. And also to note, 52% of our incoming freshmen enroll in a TBR university. Some of them do go on to a four-year university after that, but from the last pie chart, you really can see that the majority of our students are completing their degree or certificate from a TBR institution. They are the driver. TBR is the driver for our AIRS workforce, and that is why this partnership is so incredibly important to us. Chancellor Tidings mentioned our quarterly lunch meetings. They are full of information and lots of stories about every great thing that has happened in the last quarter with our students at a TBR institution. We truly thank you guys for that. So why does this core model work? We are investing in placing a properly trained full-time expert advisor for every student. That's your champion, coach, guide, technical and emotional supporter. We embed our full-time advisors in the school systems that we serve, but they are employees of the AIRS Foundation. We did that on purpose and strategically so that our AIRS Foundation counselors are held accountable to us. We are accountable to Jim and Janet AIRS and our board And that really brings a high level of responsibility and no mediocre. Mediocre has, I know Ms. Reynolds is, or Regent Reynolds is on board with this. She knows we absolutely, without a doubt, have to have a high level of expectation, and we carry that with us every day. We do not want to let down our founders. And so really being separate from the school system, we're a part of the school system, but separate at the same time, makes us where we can work just a little bit quicker. And so if a student needs something, we don't have to cut through red tape. We just are able to do it and move quickly. We insist on accountability at every step based on actual student outcomes. So where the data Mike presents is great information, those are students. That's a life that is attached to it, and we know that all too well. Ensuring every student has a plan and path to go to and through post-secondary, and ultimately the goal is to be workforce ready. I know that is a huge talking point right now, as we want to make sure our students are the best and the brightest, and that they have that opportunity to get their dream job, regardless of where that is. This is a picture of one of our offices, and our counselors, like we've said many times, are barrier removers. Whatever you present with, we have to get through that barrier, because if you have food insecurities, housing insecurities, post-secondary is never going to be an option until we remove everything else out of your way and let our students focus on actually being students. We sometimes are accused of hand-holding, and we are guilty as charged, because we want them to be able to be students, and we take that in a positive way. Mr. Ayers pays us to be hand-holders.
So I think this is a pretty powerful slide. If you see the bar in blue, that was the college going the year before we put the program into the high school. And the gold bar is where we are today. So you can see the upward trend on our college going from before Ayers and then after Ayers. This is our Ayers Foundation. This is our schools combined. We have an 82% college going rate, and you can see that compared to the rest of the state of Tennessee, and also the distressed and at-risk counties. Perry County was our only at-risk or distressed county that we're in prior to to us taking on more schools. But you can see Perry County versus the rest of the other distressed counties in the state. 88 compared to, it looks like Clay had a high 60, and you can see the lower schools.
So we've shown you a lot of data that shows how valuable our program is to the communities that we serve. Governor Lee and his administration took note of this and invested in expanding our program into other at-risk and distressed communities last year. So the Governor's Rural Education Foundation was formed by Governor Lee to improve the college access opportunities and college readiness skills for the Tennessee students. So to achieve this mission, they partnered with the Ayers Foundation, and we expanded our Ayers Foundation Scholars Program model into additional at-risk and distressed communities. To facilitate this, the Ayers Foundation, because we were a private family foundation, created a sister entity that is called the Rural Education Foundation, which is where we have all of those schools and funding and operations for those schools. It is our passion and dedication to make sure we work with these at-risk and distressed counties to move their numbers forward. We've had phenomenal results. So we started in August in our 11 new high schools, 2 in west, 2 in middle, 2 in east, 3 in west. 3 in west, 2 in middle, 2 in east. I get that confused sometimes. Yes. And so Mike's going to talk a little bit about the early indicators of success. Ultimately, these are just indicators of success. Our be-all, end-all number that we will look for is a college going rate and then ultimately completion. All of the early indicators are great, but we actually need to see students enrolled in these institutions before we pat ourselves on the back.
So here's one thing we do know. If a student does not do a FAFSA, they're probably not going to college, right? They're not getting Pell, not getting TSA, they're not getting HOPE, they're not getting NAFI. So I think seeing the increase in FAFSA we're about to show is a clear indicator that these students are taking, as Sue said, that next step. No FAFSA, no money, no college. So the nation rank is 38%. This is complete as FAFSA. That means you have an EFC. Nation's 38%. State of Tennessee is 73%. Our new schools is at 89%. It's a 30% increase from where they were last year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Fafsa Champion that THEC rolled out this year to try to get more students kind of doing the FAFSA, get schools involved. Well, out of all of our schools, we have 13 Fafsa Champions. And out of overall champions, we have 4 overall champions. Two of those were our new schools. One got the award for having the highest FAFSA completion percentage, and one got the award for actually how far they went. They had a 36% jump from where they were last year, which was top in the state. So once again, you probably don't do a FAFSA, you're probably not going to college. So it's an early indicator that our class of 2022 is making that next step to go to college.
We did want to give you an overall view of where we serve. We did start in Decatur County, so we are heavily focused in Decatur County. Now looking at 21 high schools in 12 Tennessee counties and 2 Missouri cities. Missouri is a partnership with Rooted Alliance that has been absolutely wonderful for us to be in a new state and see how it operates differently from Tennessee. I will tell you, we are so fortunate in Tennessee, the opportunities that are available for students and the financial aid that is available because of the commitment to education in our state has really shown through. And so there's a lot of work to be done, as we all know, but I feel like we are 4 steps ahead of the rest. So thank you to our Tennessee legislators. And finally, if Mr. and Ms. Ayers were sitting here today, they would say, we're obviously not having this meeting in Metro Decatur County. The vision of Mr. Ayers when he started this program was that our communities would grow because our students had access to higher education. What we have found is that our students have a limited choice of where they can work and live because of their access to higher education. So for us, our next step is to make sure that this is not just an education strategy, it's an economic development strategy for our rural communities. And so this is the next step for the Ayers Foundation. We want to make sure, and we were talking about this way before COVID, that our students have an opportunity to return home and live and work where they want to, regardless of their education level. Our intention was never that Mike would graduate from Perry County High School, get a degree, and never be able to return to Perry County. If that's where he wants to live, we want to help provide that opportunity for him to come home. We want them invested in our communities, running for school board, being on the county commission. We hope we have mayors. We want to raise their families there, put them in our school systems. And so that's really the next step of where the Ayers Foundation is focused, is making sure we broaden the opportunities of where our students can live and work after they complete their degree or credential. And that is it. I would love to answer questions, feedback, comments. Absolutely.
I have a question about that comment. So, wow and thank you would be my first comment. When I got out of high school 49 years ago, there wasn't an Ayers Foundation, but I really needed something like that. So I was lucky enough to have a couple of business people and educators that got me through the rest of my life. But I'm really impressed with what you're doing, and the term that resonated with me was the Ayers workforce. So I hope you keep tracking that and it becomes Ayers City and Ayers Family and all that, because that's the track you guys are on, and really, really congratulations. And I'm so glad in the great state of Tennessee that the Ayers people are here and y'all are doing that great work. So thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. You may have said this already, but how many students does one counselor take care of?
So we currently, our student, once they have a full class of students, 8th grade through post-secondary, they'll have one counselor to about 700 to 800 students. Our heavy focus is we make sure that we have one counselor to every 100 senior, because that is the heaviest lift.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that their caseload, works out so that the time when you're working the most with them, they need all of your attention, is we keep that about one counselor to every 100 senior.
How much does it cost to take care of one student? Or
Ooh,
what-
cost per
How much does it
student.
cost to employ one counselor? Let me say it
That
that
is such a good question. We use the school system pay scale for our employees, but they're 12 months, so we essentially use the school system's pay scale and
Okay.
add 2 months to it.
Outside of the governor's initiative, are there other communities copying this? They should.
We
I'm
have
asking
worked
for-
with Rooted Alliance, who is working with additional programs in Missouri and Texas to create similar programs.
Are you open to coming to other communities?
Absolutely. I think our plan, if I would have said that, if you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, we kind of hide what we do and don't talk about it. But I truly feel like we're at a place where we've tested the model. We know that it is expandable. And so I think we will have future growth moving forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Remarkable.
I have two questions and a comment. On the governor's program, how is the state contributing into a foundation?
Yes,
And
it's
so,
mimicked after Dolly Parton's Books from Birth, very
Okay.
similar to the structure of the
but
Dolly
it is
Parton Books
state,
from
it is
Birth.
state funds.
Correct.
And yet you all still have control once it gets into foundation and you can do what needs to be done with it.
According to the grant document, yes.
Okay, good. Second, talk just a second about the counselors being your employees inside of a K-12 school system.
Absolutely. I wish I would have brought one of our principals with us. We have to go in on the front end and really have the conversation. School systems apply for the program and want this piece of what we do. And so the feedback is phenomenal, but we make sure that we're not stepping on the toes of anything happening within the school system. So we're not replacing a high school counselor. We're not replacing a graduation coach. To date, we have never replaced anyone in the school system. And so that kind of eases the territorial, don't take my job, which we're not going to do. And so it's just a partnership with the MOU between the school system and the AIRS Foundation to allow us to work in their space and be a partner. And our counselors spend more time with the K-12 system and become a part of their family just as much as they're a part of the AIRS family.
But do you go into schools where the counselors are there and where the graduation coaches are there and
Yes.
you all are still there as well?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
because we are focused on what happens after high school. Our job while they're in K-12 is to educate them on the opportunities, but then our heavy lift really starts in on being ready to enroll and making sure you understand all of your financial aid and then following through post-secondary completion. It gives a great feedback point to the school systems that we work in because our students come back to the high school after they graduate and do their FAFSA again, make sure that, they talk about, I'm going to change my major, and they come talk to us about that. But then the school system also gets to see those students come back and hear firsthand, hey, biology really prepared me for this teacher, or there's a lot of unique information that comes back to the school system that they previously wouldn't had. Currently, school systems know their college going rate, but they never know their completion rate. And so we make sure that we get that information to our school systems and the feedback we hear of where our students struggled and where they excelled.
Great. Just a comment, I think it's really unique in an organization like this to have someone like Jim there who comes from the culture and knows and understands it. And I think that that's so important, and the idea of going back into it is something that's just been overlooked for years, and it's had a unfortunate effect, I think, on a lot of our rural areas. And I think that perhaps the inner cities, they have a unique culture as well. And so I appreciate you doing that. I grew up in a rural area, went to a school, foreign school, no gymnasium. I played on the basketball team. We lost every game except for the tournament. We beat a little team from the other end of the county with a similar situation from us. And as we're walking off the basketball court, they said, well, we know y'all beat us. And we said, how come? And they said, well, about 3 weeks ago, we was dribbling the ball down the court, Johnny was, and hit a sharp rock, and the ball blowed up, and we ain't been able to practice since. And unless you come from those kind of places and understand that, then it's hard to get back there.
You really don't understand it. Our campus visits serve multiple purposes, but sometimes it's the first time our students have been on the interstate or been into a mall. And so just exposing them to the culture, regardless of whether they ultimately enroll in post-secondary, that is a cultural opportunity that they experience for the first time and will know moving forward. So you are so very correct. Pretty much all of our counselors come from a rural area or a first-generation college student.
Susan, can you say a word about the difference in what you've seen, the role being for an errors advisor as opposed to a guidance counselor? I think most of us would hope and assume that a decent public high school had somebody who was explaining to students what a FAFSA was and what their different
Absolutely.
paths look like.
Guidance counselors have 1 million things on their plate. And if you are in the middle of filing a FAFSA and you have a student comes in that is in an emotional crisis, the emotional crisis has to be your priority. And so we feel our school counselors are doing amazing work, but they have more on their plate, and there are certain things that they have to prioritize above anyone else and anything else. And so we're in that place where they can still be completely in the loop, involved, go help us with as many financial aid nights, go on campus visits, but they don't have to feel responsible and lay their head down at night thinking, I didn't get as many FAFSAs completed today because I had a student in crisis. And so that is our ultimate goal, that we can work hand in hand with them, that we support the work that they do, but that students are also we call ourselves mom and dad. When you have an errors counselor and a guidance counselor, mom and dad are working together. They're doing two different things, but they're working together to make sure a student is successful. And it takes us all.
I like the fact that they're your employees, because then your counselors don't have to stay in bus duty and
Nope.
lunch duty and
Nope.
set their focus on your effort. What about any interaction, collaboration with Tennessee Achieves?
We work really well with Tennessee Achieves. We're the two partnering organizations in the state. So we'll put our heads together and really work hand in hand on having a great Tennessee Promise season. The FAFSA communications and deadlines, we work so closely with THEC, Tennessee Achieves, and the Ayers Foundation to make sure Tennessee Promise is successful for all students in Tennessee. And so they're some of our most valued partners.
Thank you.
Okay.
Best of all, Susan's one of our own, a graduate of Columbia State.
I am. Actually, sorry, Columbia State, I probably show us a dropout because I just transferred without completing.
Oh.
I did, however, get my Columbia State degree. So.
Oh, excellent. All right, there you go.
Yeah,
There you
I'll
go.
reverse transfer if 2004 is not too late. Sorry.
Thank you both. Thanks so much for doing that. It's wonderful. But Susan also serves as the chair of our foundation, and last night the supporting sponsor for our event was the Ayers Foundation. So Susan, on behalf of TBR, we'd like to present this to you to hang at the foundation office. So thank you so much. That is another reason for their huge success. That is their model, and they live it every single day. Well, to talk about another subject, if y'all don't mind, we'll switch over now to strategic conversations on articulation agreements. And in spring of 2022, TBR's Office for Academic Affairs is prioritizing a renewed focus on increasing the number of Tcap to community college system-wide articulation agreements. This priority supports the TBR Policy Articulation and Transfer 2.00.01.06 as we promote pathways from TCATs to community colleges by strengthening the articulated related programs. This effort promotes transferability with decreased time to completion and enhances our marketing opportunities to help students realize their education and workforce options. And with the onboarding of Dr. Jothany Blackwood, this process that we're undergoing has taken a tremendous leap forward. She's doing an incredible job making sure that these opportunities are available. TBR will be hosting strategic conversation sessions with faculty across the state to discuss this refined process and to schedule and to finalize expanded and new articulation agreements. New elements include the integration of champions, which include presidents and faculty. They will be identified to provide support and resources for these conversations and our timelines moving forward. The sessions will also highlight faculty-led presentations of promising local signature articulation agreements, some of the best that we have operating within the state, to inspire ideas for the development of the system-wide articulation agreements. The networking and sharing of best practices among the faculty can result in new ideas for student success and decrease duplication of efforts when students transfer to colleges within TBR. There are currently 7 statewide articulation agreements that all colleges should be accepting credits from at this point. That is aviation tech, administrative professional tech, computer information tech, dental assisting, emergency medical services, surge tech, and welding. The strategic conversations being led by faculty representatives on the multidiscipline specific statewide committees will establish 10 additional statewide articulation agreements, which will take us to 17 by fall. The focus is in the areas of advanced manufacturing related programs, nursing, and other health related fields. The agreements will focus specifically on the following AAS degrees: mechatronics, architectural design tech, engineering systems tech, health information management, mechanical engineering tech, nursing, electrical engineering tech, medical assisting, civil and construction engineering tech, and health sciences. By fall 22, TBR will host a signature event for a comprehensive signing ceremony of multiple system-wide articulation agreements. This will be an opportunity to inform Tennesseans of strategic efforts to maximize access to the academic and workforce pathways that address the needs of Tennessee. So I'd also like to update you this morning on our searches that we currently have underway. Cleveland State, as y'all know, with the retirement of President Seymour, we have begun the search there. The 18-member search committee for the new president at Cleveland State, who is chaired by Regent Tom White, met last week to hold first-round interviews. 11 candidates were chosen to be interviewed out of our 66 applications, qualified applications that we had. Our search firm, Academic Search, is currently conducting reference checks on candidates that are expected to advance to round 2 interviews. Round 2 is scheduled for mid-April. The projected start date for the new president at Cleveland State will be July 1. I will keep you posted on the outcomes of that search. Tcap Elizabethton, also with the retirement of President Dean Blevins, the search for a new president at Tcap Elizabethton is comprised of 14 members, with Regent Miles Burdine serving as our chair. College faculty, staff, students, alum, community members, and other college partners are represented in the committee. The first meeting of the committee took place February 21st to provide an orientation to committee members and review the search process. First round interviews are scheduled for next week, and on-campus interviews are scheduled for the first week in May. The new president is anticipated. First start date would be June of 22. And then finally, our Vice Chancellor for Business and Finance is another one that I do need to update you on. I keep trying really hard not to have to update you on this one, but Danny is not biting. When he notified me of his intent to retire, we did post the job, and we are in the process of reviewing applications. Candidate interviews are scheduled for late April, and our goal is to have the new position appointed prior to Danny's departure so that the new Vice Chancellor will be able to work alongside Danny for at least a few weeks before he departs on his cruise. He has trips booked, and he just refuses to unbook them. I don't understand, but anyway. And also at our June meeting, I'd just like to mention that I think many of you heard last night, we are celebrating 50 years of TBR. And so at our June board meeting, we do hope to have an actual celebration of that event. I wanted to give you an update on the plans and just recognize the accomplishments that we have there. It will be at Columbia State, and we'll continue to keep you posted on how we will celebrate that. And Madam Chair, well, I do have one more. No, that's it until we get to the next one.
Okay. Any comments or questions for the Chancellor? Great report. And thanks for the good work with the AIRS Foundation. They are amazing.
They are, absolutely.
They are amazing. Jim and Janet are an inspiration to us all.
It is the model that should be in every county in this state, and we're not going to rest until we get there.
Excellent, thank you. So you guys, the next item, unfinished business. We do not have any unfinished business items, so we're going to keep moving to new business and to our consent agenda. We have 3 policies, which you've seen in our notebooks, in our materials. We were also briefed on these, both a new policy and revisions, at our March 8 committee chairs meeting. Danny, is there anything else you want to add, or do you guys have any questions of Danny? One is with regard to gift cards, one with regard to financial management of student organizations, and revisions to a current policy with regard to student organizations. Anything for Danny on that? If not, we need a motion to approve. And Brian, since they're on a consent agenda, I'm gathering we can take all 3 at once.
That is correct, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Regent Hatch. Second, Regent Gill. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? This too requires a roll call vote. Mariah?
Regent Apple,
Aye.
Regent Burdine,
Aye.
Regent Duckett,
Aye.
Regent George,
Aye.
Regent Gill,
Aye.
Regent Green, Regent Hatch,
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher,
Aye.
Regent Powers,
Aye.
Regent Reed,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Farland, Regent Womp,
Aye.
and Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move into new business now, and we have 4 items of informational reporting, beginning with our Executive Vice Chancellor, Kim McCormick. She's another one who's probably just running on fumes at this point, too, from the past few days. Thanks for everything. Okay, excellent. Hit your mic, please. Thanks.
Good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor, and members of the board. I am here this morning to give you an external affairs update. I do want to also thank our external affairs team for all the work that they did over the past, actually it's been several months preparing for the event. And also I want to thank all the other offices at TBR who actually helped volunteer to get that off the ground. So they're just a wonderful team to work with. I really want to start this morning, though, with something exciting. I know that I told you all a bit ago that our Chief Kane has moved on to work for the Toletta and for the Post Commission, and we were able to tell our chair, Regent Barlin, last night that we have been able to secure a new AVC for campus safety and security. Hopefully, at some point, Chief of Police for the Tcap presidents. His name is Mike Williams, and we will be bringing him before you all in June so that you can meet him. He has a really interesting background. He began his career as a sergeant in the United States Marines. He served for 8 years in several tours. He moved from that position to working as a District 6 Tennessee Highway Patrol officer in the Cumberland County area. He moved from there, he was promoted to the actual sergeant from May of 2010 to June of 2015 with the Protective Services Division of the Tennessee Highway Patrol. So I know that from 2012 to 14, he was in charge of the security at the Capitol and at the Legislative Plaza at the time in protecting both the governor and the legislators and any others that worked in the actual area, in the downtown area. In 2015, he moved to a new challenge closer to his family to actually start the police force at the Fairfield Glade community. So he took that department from a security department to a full-blown police department. So he will come to us with a vast amount of experience, and we look forward to working with him. And Tcap presidents, I think you're just going to absolutely love him. All right, and moving on to our delightful government relations update. Speaking of someone else named Williams, I think I do need to tell you all that our first Williams in External Affairs has a birthday today. So ABC John Williams, happy birthday. Yes. And I want to thank John, Chuck, Tiara, our intern, Bethany Lay, Marilyn Roddy, Sherman Greer, all the presidents, everyone who these people have really helped work us through this session. Yesterday at TBR Day on the Hill, our presidents did a wonderful job meeting with their legislators, and a great new thing we did this year is that they actually met with legislators that were not in their service regions as well, and they went in as partners to do so with Tcap presidents and community college presidents. So they had a great presence on the Hill yesterday. Also, if you noticed how many legislators and commissioners and members of the administration attended our event last night, I attribute a lot of that to these presidents who actually got out there and invited them to the event. So if we begin with the actual legislation that we've been following, I do want to let you know that both Brian Lapps and John are here if you have any legal questions. We talked about this yesterday. We have followed thousands of bills this session, and we do every session, but we really want to highlight those that we think are of most importance to TBR. So if we start with Senate Bill 1724, this is the first bill we'd like to highlight, and it's arguably one of the most important to the TBR system. It is our TBR Sunset Bill. Each government department, agency, and board is put into what is called the sunset cycle, as you all know. If you're unfamiliar with the sunset cycle, it's a process by which the legislature provides oversight to all government entities. The comptroller conducts an audit, which is presented to the Government Operations Committee, and the committee reviews the audit and decides how many years to extend the entity. We are excited that our audit came back last year with no findings, and the Government Operations Committee voted to extend TBR for 4 years to June 30th, 2026. So that is a wonderful thing. While we didn't have any findings in the audit, the comptroller's audit team did submit 2 items for legislative consideration only. These were added as an amendment to the sunset bill. The first corrected a typo in the code with regard to the number of members of the board, and then the second clarified that our committee meetings must be live streamed and archived on our website, which they are. The bill passed through both chambers, and it's on the governor's desk awaiting signature. Our next very important bill is a piece of legislation that passed through the Senate called Senate Resolution 84. It confirms Governor Lee's reappointment of Regent Reynolds to another 6-year term on the TBR board. We are very excited that this passed through the Senate unanimously.
Since Joey always talks about how old we are, let's just hope I make it 6 more years.
Well, we're counting on
Thank you, Kim, and you all. Thank you.
All right. Senate Bill 1908 is one that we have been opposed to in the past. However, through wonderful negotiations led by Chancellor Tidings and Dr. Blackwood with the ambulance service providers, we've been able to come up with a win-win solution, we feel, to meet a critical need in the state regarding additional EMTs. This bill authorizes ambulance services to operate additional EMT and AEMT training centers throughout the state, but we've been in discussions with these ambulance service associations to provide our curriculum and support to their trainers and offer a TBR credential to individuals that complete these programs. We are still finalizing these details, Dr. Blackwood is, but this is a huge step toward really working with these parties, and we are grateful, honestly, to Senator Lundberg for adding the language into the bill to encourage that the ambulance service providers work with our TBR institutions. And this bill has passed through both chambers. Okay, I love that picture of Senator Bailey. But House Bill 2146 is an administration bill carried by Chairman Bailey and Speaker Pro Tem Pat Marsh. It will establish a third-party skills testing program within the state in order to address the state's critical need for additional truck drivers. We work very closely with the Department of Safety on this bill and with Speaker Marsh to provide feedback as to the language of this bill for it to be finalized. I want to personally thank President Jeff Sisk for all the work that he has done on this bill to help get it where it needs to be and the shape it needs to be so that it can actually help our institutions. This one will be in the Senate on April 5th, and we are waiting on it to be calendared in the full House floor. House Bill 1959 comes as a recommendation from the Tennessee Commission on Education, Recovery, and Innovation. As amended, the bill will require TCATs and LEAs to work together to provide more opportunities for students to complete early post-secondary opportunities whilst in high school. We've worked with Representative Wright to make sure that our TCATs do have the maximum flexibility to work within this directive, and frankly and honestly, our institutions already do this in working with the LEAs. So that is sent to calendar and rules in the House and headed to the full floor soon. All right. House Bill 2429, this is the bill that directs the State Board of Education to create a technical track that students can pursue in their junior year of high school. And we think that this will be a great opportunity for students to learn about technical education early and will feed additional students into our programs. And I know, Regent Gill, that's something that's near and dear to your heart. In the Senate, it's been sent to the Calendar Committee, and in the House, it is sent on to Calendar and Rules. We anticipate it moving on to the floor soon. All right. Senate Bill 2680 didn't quite make it across the finish line, but we greatly appreciate Senator Massey and Representative Lafferty for carrying this bill and starting a very important conversation. This bill actually came from an idea that a Pellissippi State TISL student had. It would have created a 16-month window after high school during which a student could still apply for and receive the Tennessee Promise Scholarship. That is exactly what happens with the HOPE. They do get that time off to be able to make those decisions. This bill was taken off notice in both the House and the Senate, but Senator Massey has said that she would like to definitely consider this conversation for students across the state. House Bill 1681. This bill would provide $2.8 million over the course of 2 years for TBR to establish a pilot program to award grants to students pursuing non-credit workforce training at our colleges. Currently, students are unable to obtain financial aid, as we all know, for these programs, so this legislation would provide access to a greater number of students. It has a $2.8 million fiscal note on it. The pilot program would require TBR to track the outcomes of the program and submit a report to the General Assembly at the completion of the pilot. If it is successful, we hope the General Assembly would extend the program going forward. The bill has passed out of committee in both the House and the Senate and is now behind the budget, which means it would be taken up after the budget. Chairman Sapicki is working very hard to find the funding to get this bill across the finish line, and we appreciate his advocacy on our behalf. Okay. In 2020, THEC brought the FAST Act, as we all know, which is a cleanup for the financial aid statuses. Really, it was for the first time in a while. The bill is a follow-up to that original FAST Act to clean up additional items in the financial aid code. One important note for our schools is that the original FAST Act inadvertently made some students in short-term programs ineligible for the Tennessee Reconnect Grant Program. This actually cleans that up for our colleges so that they can continue to ensure their eligibility. Okay. House Bill 2710. This permits public institutions of higher ed to classify veterans and military-affiliated individuals as Tennessee residents for tuition purposes. We feel that this is a positive for our students, and this bill has passed both the Senate and the House. Senate Bill 2081. As we all know, Senator Ken Yeager and Representative Dennis Powers are true champions for TBR institutions. And Senator Yeager and Representative Powers continue to be strong advocates for our middle college programs. They brought Senate Bill 2081 to again increase the middle college scholarship to $1,625. It has passed in the Senate and it's sent to Senate Finance, Ways and Means. And in the House, it has passed Education Administration and it has been sent to Finance, Ways and Means. So it is there where the decisions will be made on the fate of that bill. All right. Senate Bill 2405, we are extremely excited about House Bill 2152, Senate Bill 2405. This is being called the Give Hope Act. This is an administration bill being carried by Senator Crow and Representative Hicks. It does quite a bit for Tennessee students. The bill is still moving through the committees and may be amended before the final version makes it to the floor, but the original version says this. It increases the Hope Scholarship award amounts per student per semester to $2,550 for students enrolled in a four-year university and to $1,600 for students enrolled in a two-year college. It adds a fifth dual enrollment course to the dual enrollment grant instead of our current 4 for the community college students, and it allows a student to use the dual enrollment grant for up to 1,296 clock hours at a Tcap starting in the freshman year of high school. For many programs, that is a full program for a Tcap. It lowers the age requirement for the Tennessee Reconnect grant. You know, we've always seen that gap to 23 instead of 24 years old. So this has passed full Senate unanimously. It is set to be heard April 13th in the House, so in a few weeks. All right, there may be questions on this particular bill, and again, I said I would defer to our general counsel if you do have those questions. This is a bill produced by Chairman Bell and Speaker Sexton. It's Senate Bill 2290, and it prohibits a public institution of higher ed from taking any adverse action against students, faculty, or staff for refusal to adhere to or adopt certain divisive concepts. The bill actually defines what a divisive concept is. As amended, the bill also prohibits a college from offering training or professional development that contains a divisive concept. Finally, the bill requires each institution to conduct a biennial campus climate survey to assess the comfort level on campus in speaking freely. The results of the survey must be presented to the House and Senate during each institution's budget presentation. This bill currently has passed through both chambers. Do we have any questions on that one before I move to the next? That's a lot to unpack.
Can someone define for me what a divisive concept is?
The bill lists, Regent Duckett, about, I think, 26 things that are identified as divisive concepts, things that we do not think actually teach. For example, that one race is inherently superior to another race, that all people are not created equal, and to some things like that. So I can get you the list of the actual things that are prohibited. Now, the bill does not prohibit anybody from teaching anything. It prohibits faculty or staff or administration, for that matter, from requiring that somebody believe a divisive concept. So the bill does respect academic freedom. It does respect the First Amendment. It does nothing to overrule the Campus Free Speech Protection Act, which is very, very broad in the rights of both students and faculty. But it should not, at least on the divisive concepts action, have significant effect, I don't think, on what is being taught or how it's taught, because again, it doesn't prohibit anything from being taught. It may affect some of the training that may be a little bit harder to operationalize, but I think we can operationalize it because I'm not sure how many of those concepts would be taught in any of our training either.
Okay. Thank you.
Speaking on behalf of the faculty, I think the biggest fear from a faculty perspective is that the interpretation, how this could be seen by by people who could potentially turn this into some kind of frivolous complaint or lawsuit. And faculty are very worried about being protected, First Amendment rights, academic freedom. So, I do want to speak up on behalf of the faculty and say that this is scary for us.
I understand those concerns, and we'll be working with the presidents at the president's meeting next Wednesday to address some of those concerns and to help clarify some of the things I just said right now about what the bill does not do, as well as there is a private right of action or there is a ability to sue in the bill, but it doesn't create new causes of action, including against individuals. And the state of Tennessee, for state employees, including faculty, who are working within the scope of their employment, it does provide considerable protections against individual liability. So although I understand the concerns about it, the state of Tennessee still does have protections for faculty who might end up getting sued, especially in frivolous types of lawsuits like you mentioned.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
On the enforcement side, I understand with our instructors being public employees, the protection, as long as they are, quote, working within the scope of their responsibility. As a lawyer, the question becomes, if a complaint is brought against an instructor and they are deemed to have violated this statute, then would they be working within the, quote, scope of their employment?
The way that I've seen, it's ultimately up to the Attorney General's office to decide on those issues. We would certainly advocate as broadly as we can on behalf of the instructors that it's within the scope of employment, and there can be honest mistakes. And then you've got the more complicated issue of academic freedom, because again, the bill does not, it says it does not impinge on First Amendment rights or academic freedom of rights. So I think it would have to be a case-by-case basis that would be analyzed by the Attorney General's office on any intersection of academic freedom, First Amendment, with what is allegedly taught. Or, again, it's not that anything would be taught, it would be any violation of the Act.
One last follow-up. Having served, or I serve on another state board, and I've been sued in my public and private capacity. The Attorney General's office provided me with representation in my, quote, public capacity. But I had to, in the interest of protecting my self-interest, obtain legal counsel just in case the AG made a decision that my actions were outside of the scope of duty. So I have a grave concern on behalf of our faculty as it relates to this measure. I sent a request not related to this to a legislator asking for an Attorney General's opinion on a recent act that was approved where there is a penalty associated with it, but the legislation does not adequately define key components. So I can see this leaving our instructors in a precarious situation. And I know we can't change it, but it's just I want to go on record as well as voicing concerns about it.
And I understand those concerns. I would point out that the legislature, that this does not provide any specific cause of action against individuals. Again, as an attorney, you obviously know people can be creative with their lawsuits, and I'm not going to say it won't cause that nobody could sue a faculty member for it, but it really contemplates the actions against public institutions. So yes, there could be some concern about that. I understand those concerns. I'd just say that in the 12, 13, 14 years I've been in higher ed law, I've not seen the Attorney General, except in one situation that I was involved in, decline to provide representation to an individual state employee. I recognize it can happen, but I've only seen it happen one time, and those were pretty egregious facts that wouldn't, I think, come into play in this case.
Are there any further questions on that? All right, other bills that we have been closely monitoring are listed next. House Bill 2090 would have provided Tennessee Reconnect and Wilder Navy funds to a institution in Memphis called Mortec. That has been taken off notice in both the House and the Senate this year, so it did not pass and move through. The next is House Bill 2137. This would have provided both Wilder Navy Technical Skills Grant Funds and Tennessee Reconnect to students at a company in the Shelby County area called Tech 901. This was actually also taken off notice in both the House and Senate, so it will not be moving further. Senate Bill 446 would have basically done the same thing, would have made Western Governors University eligible for the Hope Scholarship. It was also taken off notice in both the House and the Senate. House Bill 1725 would have required THEC to include average annual earnings of TBR graduates in the outcome-based funding formula model and to weigh it in the funding formula at 50% for community colleges and Tcats. This one was never actually calendared in the Senate, and it was taken off notice in the House. House Bill 2316 is still making its way through committees. It prohibits males from participating in public higher education sports that are designated for females. The original language of the bill created a new cause of action against our institutions if an institution violated the act. An amendment that was added recently in the House Education Committee removed the cause of action against our schools. It has passed the Senate Ed and is headed to the full floor in the Senate. It is set for Finance, Ways and Means sub on April 6th in the House. Are there any questions on that bill? All right. Where are we going? All right, I'm not going to that one. Okay. I need to talk about House Bill 2673. It's on that last slide. It has had a number of amendments. Some contain provisions that raise questions about how they would impact our students. This is, it's being called the Anti-Semitism Bill. The final version of the bill looks like it would define anti-Semitism and will allow us, TBR, to treat, and all higher ed, to treat an act of anti-Semitism under the same process as we would treat an act of racism or sexism. Any questions for Brian on that particular bill? It has passed in the Senate Ed, and it is set for Education Administration on April 6th.
Okay. How do we treat them?
I'm sorry?
How do we treat?
Well, an act of anti-Semitism, again, it would be depending on if it was words, violence, etc. So it would depend somewhere on that. But if somebody makes an allegation that somebody said something that created a hostile educational work environment, it would go through an investigation process. And the bill started out giving acts of anti-Semitism a different type of process, and that would create some potential legal problems and First Amendment problems. What this basically says is, we would treat it similar to any kind of race discrimination, religious discrimination, and it would just go through our process where it would be investigated. Both sides would have a chance to explain what happened, then there would be an evaluation as to whether it violated a policy. For example, a single comment might probably wouldn't violate a policy, but might cause educational kind of sanctions or don't do that again type things. More serious the act, the more serious the disciplinary action for both students and employees would be.
All right, Vice Chair, if there are no more questions, that completes our report.
I do just want to jump in, if you don't mind, and say that I know that you see the magnitude of what's occurred here, but one more time I want to congratulate Kim and John and Brian for the attention that they have paid to, she said thousands, it was actually over 3,000 bills that they had to keep attention to, and there were, as you can see, a lot of intricacies and details involved in some of these bills that the legal ramifications could have been enormously upsetting to TBR. And thanks to the great work that they did, and again, many of our presidents stepped in and talked with representatives and legislators in their area to make this probably one of the best outcomes that we could possibly have for the system. And so again, a debt of gratitude to the great work that they've done. It was constant over the last 3 months, 24/7. So thanks to each of you. And John, happy birthday, and thank you for the great work that you're doing.
I think Regent Gill had something.
Kudos to Kim for tap dancing through this minefield this morning. We all made it safely. Thank you.
Just keep a smile on your face, that's all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, and more from the state front. Danny Gibbs is coming up to give us a state budget update.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds and members. And I do want to say it's good to be back before you this morning. This is actually the first time in 2 years that I have physically been in front of you. And during that time, I forgot what a great-looking group of people that you are. So I'm not going to talk about age like Regent Hatch and Vice Chair Reynolds. You know, there's beauty within and outside both with this group. So
Any chance our good looks might cause you to pause?
I will pause, but not stop.
Just thought I'd ask.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to give you a recap kind of the governor's budget proposal for higher education. And you had this information sent to you, most of it sent to you February 1st. The governor introduced his state budget January 31st. And we sent you notice of what was included for higher ed on February 1st. Since that time, the TBR, we've had budget hearings before the House Finance, Ways, and Means Committee, as well as the Senate Education Committee, and Chancellor Tidings did a great job with that, and her presentation was definitely well received with those groups. The Appropriation Bill Amendment cutoff date for the House, it was March 14th, and for the Senate, March 24th. And the governor also has since released this week on Tuesday his amended budget proposal, and I'll cover that with you in just a few minutes. And we're particularly interested in the bill amendment process in the House and Senate. There's actually an amendment to add funding for our Tcap police department. It was included in the governor's budget a couple years ago and then removed because of the pandemic, and it wasn't included this year, but it is being sponsored in the House and Senate this year, so we're watching that one as well. The operating appropriations for our community colleges, about $23 million. For the TCATs, about $5.7 million. And recall, this comes from the outcomes-based funding formula. So total about almost $29 million there. And to kind of put this in perspective, I mean, you just can't say enough about the state budget this year and how great it's been. I mean, just historic proportions for higher education. And to kind of put it in perspective, this year there was $90 million recommended for the outcomes-based funding formula for all of higher ed. And again, we're to receive about $29 million of that. Last year, and most years, you'll see somewhere in the $30, $36, $35 million range for all of higher ed. And this year, again, $90 million, and our portion was almost $29 million. In addition to the operating funds, we also received funding for a 4% salary pool. So for the community colleges, that was about $11 million. For the Tcats, that's about $2.3 million. And that funds a portion of the 4% salary increase. Usually about 2/3, and about 1/3 is left for the institutions to bear the cost on that. The system office, again, a 4% salary pool for us, about $858,000, and then some benefit increases on the health insurance plan of a little over $3 million. So a total of about $46 million recurring state operating funds is recommended for us in the budget. There were some other budget initiatives that were included. First one was the Operation Open Roads Commercial Driver's License, the CDL courses. Again, this is to increase the number of truck drivers and others with CDL license that we have on the roads. There was about $1.7 million recurring included for faculty and staff costs, and about $8 million for non-recurring for equipment and facility improvements related to the truck driving courses. We received also a recommendation of about $5 million recurring for the Tennessee Law Enforcement Hiring, Training, and Recruiting Program. This is to train correctional officers, and this provides funding so that at every Tcap we can have a correctional officer training program, and also it supports the criminal justice programs at our community colleges as well, and these are faculty and staff costs related to providing that training. The Tcap waitlist initiative, this is basically second year funding for that. Recall we received funding last year and there was more promised in this year's budget. So we're receiving another $8 million to cover faculty costs related to providing those new programs. Also about $11 million non-recurring, and this is for, again, additional equipment and facility renovation costs to support the expansion of the capacity at the Tcats. The Correctional Education Investment Program, this one's been around for a few years now, but this is some additional support of about $1.4 million. We had 3 colleges that their particular program was supported through a private foundation, and the funding, while it was good, it was not enough to cover the entire cost of the programs. So the state is recommending that they will fund the Correctional Education Initiative program for those 3 schools as well. The Capital Outlay Projects Manager, this is a position in our facility department, and this is really specifically related to work that we do for TSU. If you recall, as part of the Focus Act, the universities basically separated from us from a facility management standpoint, but TSU has not yet done that, so we're still responsible. And as you probably have heard, they received about $250 million in appropriation, which is going to be several projects on their campus, and our facilities office will still be responsible for managing those construction projects. So the state funded a position to help us oversee those. Now we'll take a look at the capital projects, and as you all are aware, we received $200 million for the Tcap Capacity Expansion Initiative. This funds projects at 10 campuses that are before you. Again, this is just a historic investment. As Chancellor said, it would have taken 20, 30 years to get the funding that we received this year, going through the normal funding process. So we're very, very appreciative of the funding that we received for the Tcats. Next slide, please. Some other capital projects, Columbia State Community College, and each of these 3 were also in partnership with the Tcap, but Columbia State and the Southern Regional Technology Center was funded at $49 million. Nashville State Community College, this was the Clarksville campus expansion, and there they were with Tcap Dixon, $34 million, and Roane State with Tcap Knoxville, the New Knox County campus, and Simulation Hospital. And so, if you recall, we are allowed to submit 3 projects to THEC for consideration, And this is the first time that I ever recall all 3 projects being funded. So again, it was a very good year for capital investment as well. In addition to new buildings, this year we were also allowed to submit requests for major renovations, and this again went through the THEC process. And we had 2 projects funded there. At Pellissippi State, the Hardin Valley campus renovations for $24.5 million, and then at Vol State, the Maddox building renovation, again at about $7.4 million. Total there of about $32 million. And this is an important investment. I mean, it recognizes that, in addition to new buildings, we can definitely continue to extend the life of our existing buildings, bringing them up to date with these major renovation projects. And then just the normal capital maintenance, again, the things that, just the roofs and HVACs and those type systems. We received about $22 million to support 17 capital projects across the state there as well. Now, the budget amendment. As I mentioned, the governor this week released his amended budget, and there were 3 items that pertain to our system there. There was $9 million non-recurring included for a Tcap campus expansion in Maynardville, Union County area. The intent is for this to be built on the high school property there. We also received $200,000 recurring state appropriations to support our mechatronics program. And there was also $600,000 received to start a truck driving program at Tcap Morristown. $225,000 of that was recurring and $375,000 non-recurring. And so again, this is just kind of a summary, just really draw your attention to the bottom line, almost $63 million recurring, $433 million non-recurring, grand total almost a $500 million investment in our system this year. So again, this is just historic. And that completes my report.
Questions or comments for Danny? Other than everybody taking the big gulp, right? A big breathless. This is great.
I didn't see a line item for a cruise. Is that
For
somewhere
cruise.
else?
I think there's some indirect costs built in there somewhere, I think.
Oh, that's funny.
So I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Reggie George.
I noticed that you had the appropriation amounts and then the match. Where does the match come from?
Yes. That can come from a couple different places. It can either be institutional funds, the reserves and plant funds that I've talked to you about in the past, or it can be from private fundraising. And usually that's the first effort is toward private fundraising, and then if there's anything that's still needed, the campus can supplement that with their institutional funds.
Hey, Danny.
Yes.
I'll give an example of that. So the Nashville State campus in Clarksville, we have to raise $1.4 million, and I'm on that foundation board. So we've asked the mayor of Clarksville and the mayor of Montgomery County, each one of them, to give us $500,000. So they didn't say no, but they didn't say yes. But so they're working on that. We've also already organized a couple of fundraising campaigns where we're going to businesses and asking them to help us raise that money. So that's what that looks like.
Good example. Others? Thank you,
All right.
Danny Gibbs.
Thank you all.
Much appreciated. It is an historic time for us. Very exciting. Carol Per Year, speaking of exciting. Both you individually and what you have to tell us. So you're always upbeat.
Well, thank you very much, but I have never followed a presentation that used the B word, the billion word. I mean, that's pretty amazing for me. So anyway.
But you have one with Ford.
Well, that's true, but this was ours.
Oh, that's true.
The other one we just get to work with. Okay, do you want me to go ahead and just start?
Please.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. I'm
Please,
sorry. I'm so
I'm so
excited. I
sorry.
don't know. Next slide, Carol. That'll be fine. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and to share share the good work that the campuses are doing for workforce across the state. The agenda items before you are all informational items, workforce development projects and activities, campus workforce initiatives, new apprenticeship programs, and updates on the Governor's Correctional Education Initiative. And the next slide, please, Carol. But we're going to start with the big news, and that is the news with Ford and SK Innovation. And the Chancellor had asked that I give the board an update on where we are and what we're doing. And so I'd like to do that very quickly and just talk a little bit about where we are. Obviously, in September of 2021, the state of Tennessee announced that Ford Motor Company, in partnership with SK Innovation, would be building a new manufacturing company at the Memphis Regional Mega Site in Haywood County. And of course, it's being called the Blue Oval City. Of course, the college system of Tennessee got very, very busy, and we have a task that has been assigned to us, and that is to develop the comprehensive workforce development strategic plan to develop the designing, building, staffing, and program planning for the new Tcap that will be on the mega site. But the good news is we don't have to do it all alone. We've got partners all across the state. We'll be working with, of course, the Department of Labor, with their veteran services, their American Job Centers, their apprenticeship programs. We'll also be working with the Tennessee Department of Human Services, THAC, Economic Development, of course, our 40 of our institutions, certainly our secondary partners in education, and then the Department of Corrections to make all of this happen. So we're excited about that. Our responsibilities are the instructional, workforce programming, credit programming, dual enrollment and dual credit, skill assessments, apprenticeships, articulation, and Dick Tracy gets to work on the plan and the design of the building, and President Sis gets to figure out how to operate it. So lots of things going on and lots of responsibilities, but we are excited about that. The programs that we'll be looking at for this new technical college will be the electrical maintenance, electrical mechanical, the EV, automotive, culture, safety, behavior, and professional dispositions, which is Ford's way to say worker ethics program, the lean programs, cybersecurity, machine tool technology, and human resources. So there's a big broad range of courses and things that they're actually looking at right now. I'm going to kind of go through the timeline. In September of 2021, we had the announcements. Quickly after that, the Chancellor called a team together to start working on the system's draft strategic plan on how to accomplish this. And I still use the word draft because this truly is a draft. It is things moving forward and it's changing. I laughed and told Vice Chair Reynolds that we had a meeting with the Ford folks on Tuesday with the presidents. Last night at the dinner, Chancellor Andy leaned over and said, "Hey, you know some of that stuff we talked about yesterday?" And I said, "Yes, sir," and I'm reaching for my notebook to take some more notes. And he said, "It's changing, so don't worry about it." I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. But so that's why we still call the strategic plan a draft. But in November, we pulled together across the state what we considered subject matter experts from all of our colleges to be able to help develop the curriculum, review, and to work with Ford. In December, the Chancellor, President Garrett, and myself traveled to Detroit to visit their Advanced Manufacturing Center, to talk to SK, and just start to get to know our new partners. And we had a good visit. It was a quick visit. I'm realizing everything with Ford is quick, so just let you know that. In January, we came back, started doing, again, some institutional planning for us. And then the end of January, 1st of February, Ford visited the Smyrna Tcap, and we hosted a statewide meeting with all state entity partners there. Universities were there. The Career and Technical Education in West Tennessee had their superintendents there. All of those were there for us to work together. I've never been in a room that had so many Post-it notes around the wall, but lots of brainstorming, lots of coming together. So that took place in February. In March, again, Ford came and spoke with the presidents just yesterday. We are planning another trip to go to Ford. This time we'll be visiting the Advanced Manufacturing Center again, but we will also be visiting the Henry Ford Community College, which is really where I'm excited because I want to really see how they're doing all this, because it's one thing to hear it, but it's one thing to talk to a faculty member and see what they're really saying and their input. So we're excited about doing that. Also in April, Jeff Sisk and his team will be doing the interviews for the executive vice president. He hopes to make that decision and have someone in place in May. We hope to have job descriptions that Ford's actually looking at and a confirmed number of how many of this slot do we need, how many of this person's do we need, and so forth. So we're hoping to get that in May. In June, we hope to bring before all of you some of the academic programs and changes that we need to take a look at. I will tell you that the campuses have been wonderful to work with, and I hope that you got to meet our Ford contacts last night during the SOAR event. One of the things that we received the 1st of March was Ford called it TBR's homework, but it wasn't just TBR. We all, State Department of Ed got it, universities received it, but it was a multiple tabbed Excel sheet that listed over 1,200 competencies in a variety of different program areas that they wanted to see what TBR already had to offer, where the gaps were, and what we needed to develop. And so we have returned that. We sent that back last Friday. And again, I thank the institutions for helping me with the big lift on that. So now, what's next? We're going to wait a little bit. I laughed and told the presidents Tuesday that everybody is geared up to help, but you can just rev your engine because we're not ready to leave the start line. We're going to have to hold on just a little bit so we know where we're going. But Ford has taken our information along with the university and State Department of Education, and they are reviewing it. They're analyzing. Again, they're finding those gaps for the career paths that they need. They will be coming back to Tennessee on April the 19th to be at Jackson State Community College. I appreciate them hosting this event. We'll be working with all of the colleges in West Tennessee to sort of look at that information again and start sorting it out. So again, I'm looking forward to that. We're meeting on that Wednesday, on that Tuesday, on that Thursday. They're meeting with their secondary partners. They're skipping Thursday, and then on Friday, they're working with the universities. So they'll be back in town. Meanwhile, for us, as far as TBR, we need to just, again, consider how the strategy's going, what we think about it, looking at our credentials, looking at articulation agreements, looking at industry certifications, and just having some information ready for them on the 19th. And that completes my report on the Ford group. Are there any questions or...
I only want to make a comment. As y'all know, we are so blessed to have Carol in charge of this. Her energy level is keeping up with Ford and actually has them on their toes. So all of the intricacy of this plan that's having to be put in place, she's got on her shoulders, and she is doing it with an incredible skill. And so we are so blessed to have her in charge of it.
Thank you, Chancellor. It's a fun project. It's fun. But believe it or not, we do have other news across the state in ECD. So I'm going to quickly go through those. ECD projects are returning to the state. There for a while, we didn't really have industry visits coming in and looking. They're back. Morristown had 2 already this year. Murfreesboro's had 2. Columbia and Hohenwald's had a couple. Murfreesboro lost one, by the way, and I think they might have went to Wilson County, which is my next exciting news. However, Wilson County is having a great look. While we're still looking in some of our areas, Wilson County has landed 2 big projects recently. Triton, which is an Australian electrical charging company, and it's Fast Charge is what they're known for. They are going to be hiring 500 individuals in Wilson County in the Lebanon area, and they will have 6 production lines, and within the next 5 years, they'll have everything underway. And this is wonderful because not only does that help us, we're already the #1 in the Southeast on electrical vehicle production. We're now getting into the charging stations, which is just a perfect marriage. Wilson County also had Ultimate Linings LLC to establish. They are a protective coating company, and they're actually relocating from Texas here. So we're excited to have them here. But I'm most excited to say that I called G.C. Hicks, that is the executive director of Wilson County. He's a good friend of mine. We work together all the time with ECD products, and I was talking with him, and he said, Carol, he said, the one thing you need to remember, that what you are doing at the colleges is making a difference in landing these companies. We certainly heard that with Oshkosh, we heard that with Van Hool, we've heard it with Ford, we've heard it with Denso's Expand. I mean, we hear it all the time, but it's really nice when someone else says it too. And I got tickled because this morning with the AIRS presentation, their quote was not just an education strategy, an economic development strategy for rural communities. GC said, Carol, we can't have a workforce program without an education background, so we appreciate what the Board of Regents is doing. So I thought that was kind of ironic today that those quotes went together. In East Tennessee, Cleveland State is running the gamut with apprenticeship programs. They are really doing a great job with that, getting into it. A year and a half ago, I could not have stood here and mentioned even the apprenticeship word, but it's going great now. The nice thing that Cleveland is doing, it goes along exactly what the Chancellor was talking about earlier, about those articulations, seaming things together. Every program that they have in their apprenticeship program is also translating into their credit side. So students will never have to start over. They will be able to take their education from the workforce side onto the credit side at some point if they want to do that. And I must laugh at Tcap Knoxville. We asked colleges to send us what they're doing, and President Cheney sent me a list that was probably like this long. ECD projects are back, folks. Knoxville's working with healthcare. They're working with manufacturing. They are just doing hundreds of things, just like our other colleges as well. So very proud of that and proud of the work that they're doing. The variety is very, very nice. Pulaski here in Middle Tennessee is working with the Lawrence County for their Lawrence County Jail. They are actually working on a manufacturing readiness program. It's 186 hours. The students, when they complete, will earn a certificate in safety, quality, manufacturing, and worker ethics skills. And it will also, Chancellor, transfer to their credit program, so that's nice. And of course, the whole goal of that program is if we teach teach the skills that they're going to need when they're released, the chances of them ever going back are greatly reduced. And we, of course, are doing that with our prison program, but it's nice to know that schools are doing that in the jails as well. And Crump has got a program as well doing that. Tcap Hohenwald was selected as an approved Delta Airlines machine tool partner, and that is amazing. So we're very excited for that. Machine tool is getting a lot of attention. Tcap Murfreesboro just received $500,000 from Haas, so we're always excited about that. You may or may not know that February the 7th would be a date that many of the presidents would remember. You all may not have, wasn't much of a date for me, I'll just tell you. But that is when the entry-level driver training requirement started for all commercial drivers. And that's changed how you're going to get your CDL across the state. Our colleges were very quick to help develop and work with companies. If you already had your CDL, you're okay unless you're trying to go from A to B or B to A or however you want to change your certifications. I'm happy to say that Columbia has a pre-alignment apprenticeship program, as all of you know. They were very quick to respond to the utilities in the area because they had people wanting to switch their license and upgrade their license or take their CDLs. They needed this specific training. And they were quick to do that and able to help the utilities without the utilities having to take an employee off-site for 4 weeks or take a truck off the line. So again, it's the nimbleness of what our colleges can do to meet the industry needs. So we appreciate that. And again, all of our truck driving programs are going through something similar. So we're rounding out the state. We're at West Tennessee Southwest Workforce Solutions, which is the name of their workforce division, which I love. Their goal is to address upscaling current employees. And we're going to need that when we're working with Ford. We're not going to have all just graduates. We're going to have to do some upscaling. So they've already got a great plan in place. They've been working with Sunoco on partnering to help employees learn the skills they need to pass the examinations to go into their apprenticeship program. And they've had great success with that, so much success that Sunoco is asking them to do some additional projects as well. They are also doing something very similar with Nike. I'm telling you, workforce is back. Then we've got the New Bern and Ripley and Covington, and Yolanda must have copied President Cheney's list because President Jones's list was just as long, all the different companies that they're working with. It's machining, it's electrical, it's welding, all of those skills that we know that industry are crying out to have. Very nice to know. And I'll end with just one more quick story, and that is to update you on our prison initiative program. To date, Lauren Selena is watching this like a hawk. We have 25 graduates from Tcap, Oneida, New Bern, Ripley, and Dixon. So we've got a few more months going. In fact, Tcap New Bern is planning their first in-person graduation on May the 23rd. And we are so excited to see those graduates and get to really go and see their graduation. She has been working with the licensure guide. She's developed the first system-wide catalog to help with our THAT navigators and to help the people in the prisons who work with folks before they're released to have good information and good contact information. So we're excited about that. And in fact, it was really nice last night to see Judge Brandon Gibson and hear her talking about this program and the work that we're doing across the state. So that was very nice. So again, workforce is back and we're excited. And I'll just have one ask of you, and that is as you travel around and you start visiting the colleges again, which I know you're all excited to be doing that, and we'll welcome you. I want you not to just go to the president's office. It might be the nicest office on campus, that's for sure, and they may even have some refreshments for you, so please go by. But what I will also ask you to do is to go by and find the workforce division. Find that workforce person on that campus. There are 40 colleges out there with a center, or sometimes it's just one person, but they are working every day to make sure that Tennesseans can meet the workforce needs. So don't just visit the president, but also go see those workforce groups because they are something to be very proud of. And this concludes my presentation.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I've got a comment and a question. Next time you present, I'm going to need a little bit more energy.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Work on that. And then second, the question is, what do we think the real delta is? I'm not working any longer. I'm retired. So I read about the great migration of employees and the great resignation and all that. What do we think the real delta is on the number of people we're training right now in the state and the ability to fill all those jobs? Do we know what that looks like?
I really don't. I mean, I don't even know how to guess that. I know that from looking at and talking to our partners at Department of Labor, and of course on our campus, we're adjacent to the Career Center. It's very interesting to see the number of people who had full-time jobs and then just walked away. A lot of those people now are coming back and trying to get additional training and going in a different field. This is why this Ford project is so exciting. It will change West Tennessee. It will, it really, truly will. So I'm sorry, I don't have, I can bring you energy, but I don't have the answer to that question. Okay. I'm sorry.
Anybody else? Well done, Carol.
Okay,
We appreciate
thank you.
And presidents, did you get the message when we come your way? Make sure we go to the workforce office. So thank you. It is an exciting time for us and for our state on so many levels. So thank you, Dr. Perrier. Russ Deaton. More exciting news to come. How are you? Good. Is Amy coming up too? No.
There's the mic.
Here we go.
Good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Dr. Tidings, members of the board. Over the last couple of years, this board has talked a lot about, you've heard a lot about the impacts COVID-19 has wrought on remote learning, online instruction, campus operations. One aspect of that, though, that we all encounter in our workforces and need to prepare our students for is what they will encounter when they exit our colleges and are in industry, in workplaces that are themselves now hybrid and remote. How you think about the interview process, how you go about thinking through the trade-offs and the different aspects of developing a mentality to work in that environment. Well, a few months ago, Chancellor Tidings asked us to develop a course that would address precisely that. So I am honored today to ask Dr. Christine Mayer, who leads the eCampus team here at TBR, part of Academic Affairs with Dr. Blackwood, to show you what that team has developed that will be made available to our students, faculty, and staff to help them prepare for and engage the kind of work environment that many of us are experiencing today. So, Christine.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited about this product that we've created. And so I'm going to give you an overview today of TN Adapts. This is a no-cost, asynchronous, self-paced, and fully online training experience. Adapts was designed to assist our current and future TBR students and graduates with strategies for working remotely and for understanding the characteristics of successful remote workers. We created an infomercial to promote the course. The direct link is there on in your materials so that you can check it out. It's got a really upbeat soundtrack, and I think it's really catchy, and I think it will help us promote this course. We expect that working remotely, at least part of the time, may be the new normal for our graduates entering the workforce. Indeed, 59% of the American workforce is currently working remotely, and 31% of Tennessee jobs are remote friendly. As Dr. Deaton said, TBR leadership anticipated this. And so the instructional design team at T&E Campus designed this brief course to prepare our citizens. ADAPTS stands for Aim, Define, Apply, Prepare, and Succeed. So it encourages learners to aim to use their degree to fulfill their career goals, to define and understand remote work specifications and the necessary characteristics of a remote worker, to apply and interview for remote work, to prepare by selecting the right tools to create an effective and efficient work environment, and to succeed in working as a remote employee. In ADAPTS, content is presented using interactive graphics. So learners can hover over the images to explore concepts. Each graphic is a hotspot. So for example, here in a section entitled, Does Remote Work Work? The content is covering the various levels of autonomy in teamwork working remotely. The learner simply clicks on a number on the graphic and the relevant content displays. Scenario-based learning puts the learner in the context of the real-life work situation they will have when they are working remotely. The learner scenarios in ADAPTS pose a realistic challenge, several choices, and feedback, which is presented in terms of consequences. So for example, here, the learner is participating in a mock virtual interview for a remote job. The virtual interviewer poses a question, and the learner selects the answer they think is best from a selection of choices. Scenario adjusts for each answer the learner gives, and the virtual interviewer changes course in line with the answer they selected. As the learner progresses through the interview, they are given feedback on the consequences of their selections and guided toward the best way to answer interview questions for remote positions. And it is possible for them not to get the job in this virtual mock interview. So instead of asking learners to simply read the content, interactive flashcards are used throughout ADAPTS to grasp learner attention and help learners clear, solidify, and practice their skills and knowledge. Here, interactive flashcards are used to present the advantages and disadvantages of remote work. It's not for everyone. Learner workflow is streamlined and competency-based, and users can move around in the 5 modules in any order they wish and as many times as they wish. Module 6 is completed if the learner wishes to receive a certificate of completion. After engaging with the content, the learner can test their knowledge by completing a short assessment. And the threshold for competency is 80%. If 80% is not received, or just anytime they want a refresher, learners can return to review the content as many times as needed to reach that competency threshold. Once the threshold is reached, learners can choose to receive the certificate of completion. The certificate is personalized, as you see on the screen, with the learner's name and the date, and is emailed to the learner in PDF format. They can use the certificate as part of their portfolio when they're applying for or interviewing for remote positions. We expect we'll be releasing this course sometime in April. It will be on the TBR website, publicly available. It is accessible from any computer, tablet, or phone, any device with internet connection. And we will be promoting it for use in numerous ways. Our campuses can use ADAPTS in any way they envision. It's widely available. We will help them figure out how if they need us to. One of the things we do plan is to offer it to college career and student success centers to make that available for their visitors. We plan to promote the course to interested businesses and industry partners, and faculty can place the link in their course. It should be specifically relevant to many courses, but for example, my courses are all seniors. The courses I teach are all seniors getting ready to graduate. So I plan to use this in my course, even though it's not about interviewing and remote work, just to help my students. The web address for ADAPTS is in your materials, and you can feel free to give it a spin at your leisure. It takes anywhere from 5 minutes to some number of hours because it is competency-based, and you can work through it in any order you wish. That's my presentation on ADAPTS. I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Dr. Mayer?
I will mention that when I presented to the presidents the other day, someone asked, could we please adapt ADAPTS for current employees, basically taking out the interviewing part because we don't want to lose them. So we have that on our list of things to do. And we're excited about being able to do this and other sorts of things for Tennessee students.
Good feedback. Chancellor?
Thanks again to Russ and Christine for doing this. It was discussion points that we had, and the next thing I knew, they were actually in development and had this product ready to go. So thank you so much. And again, thanks to the presidents that recommended that we do this for current employees, because we do have a lot of employees that are navigating their way through this different environment that we are all becoming more accustomed to. So thank you so much.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so the story of how COVID has impacted our enrollment and student success the last few years continues to unfold. I want to bring you a few data updates today about that. Since we last gathered, we have several new bits of information, and I'm going to give you slightly less color commentary than I normally would, just to kind of, in the interest of time, but obviously available both today and later to answer questions or provide context to you. But since we were last together in December, we now have end-of-term fall enrollments, we have preliminary spring 22 enrollments, and of course we have graduates' degrees produced from the fall 2021. So first, go through enrollments. In the main, again, the story has not changed largely from what you have seen the last couple of years, but we now have that final enrollment count at community colleges, looking at about 70, almost 75,000 students, down from about 90,000 just 2 years ago. This is the lowest headcount enrollment our community colleges have had since 2001. That's a long time. It shows you the impact both of post-recession era back from the Great Recession and, of course, the impacts of COVID. We do have some colleges that are growing. You see Cleveland and Dyersburg noted there. Most of that is in the dual enrollment space, which is growing rapidly at those two colleges. Tcats have seen some large enrollment increases, and particularly in the 2021 year, growing by about 8%, reaching a new high of about 23,000 students. That is mostly, as you can see, in the head count, not so much in the FTE, again, largely because it's a function of the significant growth they've had in the dual enrollment space. But Tcats are hitting new high in their enrollment for fall 2021. So looking at preliminary enrollments for spring 22, and again, remember that these are changing still as we go, particularly at the TCAT sector, and even at the community colleges, you'll see because of the use of accelerated courses, we don't have everything captured at census, but we do have some preliminary idea. The growth we've seen at TCATs continues apace. You now see about 17,000 students registered, or 16% more than this time last year. That is significant growth. It is across the board, both in the dual enrollment space and, as you see, in the continuing student space, the new student space. The community college trend continues downward. We are 6% lower than we were at this juncture in spring of 2021, about 61,000 students in headcount. Again, much of this is derived from the impacts COVID had early on, and we're seeing that now wash through the data, down 6% from where they were this time last year. Looking at success, so the cumulative impacts, a lot of that enrollment decline is now washing through the awards. What you see here is just the fall semester awards. This is not the year-round number that will bring you when we talk about this in depth in September. This is the fall snapshot only. We've seen pullbacks a little bit in both the community college and TCAT awards. That is a function both of enrollment declines and, as you'll see in a moment, some stagnation and some slight declines in success rates. But again, backing off those awards slightly, which was predicted based on what we saw with enrollments these last 2 years. However, when we look at the fall 21 freshman class, we track really closely the persistence rates of that freshman class, both into the spring semester and, of course, throughout their entire time with TBR. The fall 20 class, the one that really was in the teeth of COVID, we had that decline we discussed last year in that first semester retention rate pretty precipitously. You can see that decline there getting into the about 70% range. We saw a rebound in that rate for the fall 21 freshman class. That's good news. Hopefully that's on a long-term upward trajectory. 1 year does not a trend to make, of course, but hopefully we are bouncing back from that low. And we've seen that really across the board, and this is key. Much as we saw some weakness in retention rates for black men, for low-income students, those are now bouncing back. And I do want to highlight Dr. Hall, who I know is here, and Dr. Jackson, who hopefully is watching. Both Southwest and Nashville had notable improvements in retention rates for black men from fall to spring. So hopefully the good news continues as we track these cohorts over time. Graduation rates. Normally we will bring you a 3-year graduation rate, kind of the benchmark higher ed uses. We track this, of course, every semester. We are tracking here on this slide the fall 19 freshmen and looking at them through their first 2.5 years, so right up through spring of 2021, fall of 21, gives us a sense of where that 3-year rate is going. Over the years of COVID, we have not seen that rate decline. It's actually continued to grow. We do see stagnation now in that fall 19 freshman class. If you were to ask me to attribute that to something, this is obviously the class that encountered COVID and all the restrictions and impacts really from the get-go, from spring 20 onward. So some stagnation in that number was somewhat expected. We do see the equity gap widening a bit. We saw weaknesses in the black graduation rate coming down a percentage point or two. But we will be giving you the full 3-year rate once we see the spring 22 data here in a few months. And finally, the Tcap, excuse me, the COE completion rate. It has drifted downward a bit over 2 years. That's what's on the left-hand side, that completion rate from 82% to 76%. Not an alarming decline at all, though it is notable only because TCATs historically have those completion rates in the low 80s. So any movement in that number tends to get attention, and we've talked to a few presidents about understanding the dynamics of what has occurred to produce that. It's the expected things you would see. It's the impacts of the economy, people's fear of the public health situation, the workforce dynamics, even some idiosyncratic things, such as the fact that Shelby County required every institution in that county to be remote for a lot longer than other counties in the state. So you saw impacts of particular TCATs. Again, not an alarming decline. 6 percentage points is not to be alarmed about, but we are watching it and are engaging in conversations with TCATs where necessary. Job placement rates, licensure pass rates, as you see, are still at elevated levels and remain so. And again, that last slide just summarizes those key takeaways. So again, the story overall has not largely changed from what you saw back in December and the fall. And of course, we continue to monitor these, and we'll be bringing you more information in the coming board meetings. So Vice Chair Reynolds, happy to answer questions if there are.
Chancellor, were you going to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to add into this just a little bit that with reference to where we saw that decline for the TCATs, we do know that Memphis and Nashville were the two areas where the students were kept out of the high schools the longest, and so we attribute a good bit of that to the fact that that was our dual enrollment numbers, that we couldn't get into those systems. So we know that that's where we had a good number of that. And then with regard to the community college decline, I know that many of you are thinking revenue and what is that doing to our revenue, and it is having an impact there. So we do have two colleges, Jackson and Volunteer, that have already had to implement a RIF for employees, because obviously when you've got that decline in the number of students, you've got to do some right sizing on some of your employee issues. You will be hearing about those over the next few months if you've not already been made aware of that. We do have two other colleges with sharp declines that are also having to look at their head count, just their number of employees that they have employed. So it is significant, and we are doing everything that we can to see where we're going to end up at the end of the day on this. We've had dips before. We manage it to the best of our ability, but at some point then you do have to step in and make some drastic decisions, and that's kind of at the point where we are at this moment in time.
Regent Gill, did you have
go ahead.
something? And then Regent Hatch.
Russ, have you taken a look at what both Blue Oval City and the budget that was approved earlier, specifically for the TCATs, how that might pan out in the next couple of years and impact, enrollment and retention?
I think it's fair to say we've already seen the impacts of that. I think the fall 21, spring 22 numbers you see, I think show the initial evidence that's having an impact, expanding capacity, drawing attention to that phenomenon. I suspect we'll see that growth for a while. The volume of capacity expansion that's happening is going to have an impact. I think we've seen the early signs of that now. I expect that it'll continue.
Russ, as with all your other work, is really, really, really helpful. Could we get this deck sent out to each of us
Yes.
in an email form?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Others? All right, as always, good work.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for keeping us posted. All right, Regents, we are to our action items, so we're going in roll call vote mode as we consider these next 11 items. And we start with one that we all discussed on March 8th regarding our compensation plan methodology. Regent Green, the floor is yours for your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Personnel and Compensation Committee met in a special call session last week on March 25th to review and recommend approval for the following items: compensation plan proposals for the community college presidents, the Tcap presidents, the chancellor, and the Tcap staff and faculty. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the March 25th meeting of the Committee of Personnel and Compensation as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second for Regent Green? Thank you, Regent Duckett. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Mariah, let's call the roll.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks to Danny for getting this conversation started, and thank you, Chairman Green, for the time you put into this and your expertise. Much appreciated. Moving forward for the system, so very important. Russ, you were back up to follow up on an item we also discussed early in March.
Yes, ma'am, we did. So to reset the stage, and I'll go through this in summary form. We had a really lengthy and in-depth discussion at March committee chairs, but the issue here is one of about academic preparation, and the policy, the exhibit to the policy we're asking you to formally approve today addresses how we react to issues of preparation. Go ahead, please, Carol. And to kind of, again, remind you of where we are, this plays very deeply into TBR's open access mission, and the majority of our students come to us needing some remediation across various subjects. This is not unique to TBR. This occurs at universities too. It's more pronounced at TBR just given our mission. Over the decades, higher ed has had various strategies to address that preparation issue. And for the most part, states tend to take that in a sequential way. They first try to address it in, say, a remedial math class. If the student were to succeed, she then goes into the college level math class next. The problem there is the next does some heavy lifting in that sequence, because if you don't pass that first course, you never get to the college course. That was a significant barrier, of course, for students. That is what prompted this board 7 years ago to adopt a very revolutionary approach to this preparation issue, which is the idea, and this is in the vernacular, co-requisite remediation. The idea that we address the remediation issue concurrently with their college level material. That the student, every student, goes straight into the college course and then gets support from the college, from faculty along the way, concurrent with that college material. That has dramatically improved retention rates. It has dramatically improved student success. It has, in the main, worked. And TBR is a leader in that space. Part of that issue, though, is how we assess whether a student needs that support or not. This is the issue before us today. For years, TBR used ACT score, a good metric to use, but has its limitations, but was the main vehicle, the main diagnostic, if you will, for how to apply the support or not. Well, that issue really came to the forefront 2 years ago, right, when the ACT tests were widely canceled, and we suddenly had no way of assessing how students might or might not need that support along with their college-level courses. That coincided with some very significant research already underway, and as you know, for the last 2 years, we have been piloting the use, alongside ACT and some other metrics, of high school GPA as a way to assess whether a student needs that learning support course or not, alongside the college course. Actually, go ahead to the next slide, please. So that pilot, again, played out over 2 years, and to remind you what that was, it was the introduction alongside of, not in lieu of, but alongside of ACT and some other metrics of high school GPA as a way for a student to bypass that learning support. In other words, it was a signal to us, to the colleges, that we could withdraw that support. They wouldn't need it because their success in the college course was pretty well, it was going to pretty well happen. So we set on a 3.6 GPA to test this. That was very empirically derived. Lots of research went into that. We tested that at all of our colleges this past year. We had 3 colleges request a different GPA where we tested a 2.8 as the trigger for learning support. As we discussed a few weeks ago in committee chairs, a lot of research and analysis went into this, a lot of discussion, both qualitative feedback, heavy quantitative feedback. In the main, the 3.6 GPA worked. And when I say worked, what I mean is that if we allow students with that GPA to not need the learning support course, to just take the college course basically by itself, they did just fine. They did not appreciably improve success rates when they also had the learning support course. We could withdraw it and it didn't really impact success rates. That was not true for the 2.8 pilot. In the main, that one failed, meaning that when we withdrew that support from those students, there was damage done to their success rates. Obviously, this is a consequential choice we all have to make, both in the individual classroom, at the faculty level, and at the policy level, about when and how to apply that support. So we learned some things from that pilot, which again brings us here today. Actually, go ahead, please, Carol. So the recommendation is to add, alongside our other metrics, again, the main one being ACT, but there are others, the use of permanently high school GPA as a placement tool for learning support for that co-requisite experience. This would not put anyone new into learning support. It would allow an avenue for some to get out of it. About 2,000 freshmen actually are impacted by this, who essentially have that GPA, in this case, the 3.6, but not the test scores, allowing them to bypass learning support. And again, everything from the pilot, everything from our analysis suggests those students will be just fine and are succeeding at high rates. An additional element of this is dual enrollment access. Actually, go ahead to the next slide, please, Carol. Which would establish a score for accessing dual enrollment courses at a 2.8 GPA, which could sound very different from the 3.6, but again, the 3.6 for our freshmen is a cumulative based on 4 years. It tells you a lot of information. For a dual enrollment student, say a first semester junior, that GPA tells you a lot less. There's only based on 2 years of information, some early courses in their high school career. The dual enrollment approach we're recommending would combine that 2.8 GPA, that more flexible GPA, with an important discernment process that would occur between the high school and the college about the student's readiness. So the two parts, again, of the policy we are asking you to implement today that would be used starting this fall would be these two additions, the inclusion of GPA as a metric for learning support and revisions to the dual enrollment GPA to provide a more flexible approach for colleges as they determine for whom that's appropriate. That is the short version, Vice Chair Reynolds, members of the board. Again, there's a lot more detail we discuss at committee chairs and that I'm always available to answer questions about, but in essence, that is the recommendation before you today.
Further questions or comments for Russ on this? Yes, sir.
Can we also get this deck sent?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
If not, we do need a motion to approve the recommendation.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. And a second? Second. Thank you. Got it. Any further discussion? If not, once again, this requires a roll call vote for this good work.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Dr. Blackwood? We have some proposed program implementations at our Tcats.
Yes, good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Titans, and members of the board. The Office of Academic Affairs is bringing forward 253 proposals to you today. And because I know there may be some minor interest in going home today, we have prepared a very brief presentation about that. Let me quickly highlight 29 of those program proposals presented are traditional programs that really respond to the needs of students, businesses, and industries. Because we want to be prepared in case of any emergencies from COVID to weather impacts, in terms of distance education delivery, all of our TCATs are seeking approval to provide program instruction flexibility through COE for permanent traditional distance education or traditional hybrid in the event of these emergencies. The focus of that is student success, so whether there are COVID impacts or weather impacts, TCATs can continue to deliver their instruction if they need to go online briefly. Again, in that area, there are 205 proposals to cover distance education for all TCATs. And then there are also embedded in there 19 academic actions that require only notification to my role. You have all of those documentations available to you. So I've asked Dr. Hollins to present a very streamlined, brief presentation of 253, I tried to increase it on you, programs and actions. The key takeaway is that the TCATs are really engaged in meeting the needs of students in the community. And the other takeaway would be whether to shock and I have the same definition of brief. So Dr. Hollins.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blackwood. Good morning, Madam Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and all those that serve the board. According to TBR Policy 2010200, the board reserves to itself the authority to review and approve all new proposed actions pertaining to the establishment of diplomas and certificates at our TCATs. The board's support of academic programs, program development and expansions, promote open access, completion, and community and workforce development themes of our strategic plan. The work aligns to our Drive to 55 goals and assists us in fulfilling our mission of student success and workforce development. In 2020-2021, TCATs awarded over 7,000 technical certificates and diplomas, which is an increase of nearly 500 awards from the 2019-2020 year of awards. In that same academic year, over 75 students completed a TCAT program and over 85 students were placed in relevant careers. Approximately 56% of jobs in Tennessee require skills requiring more than a high school education, but less than a 4-year degree. Our TCATs do an exceptional job supplying Tennessee's workforce demand in key industries like advanced manufacturing, automotive, distribution and logistics, and health care sciences. The 29 new program proposal and program expansions and 205 proposals to deliver online learning when the need arises, as well as the 19 program modifications that are before you today, demonstrate TCAT's commitment to meet the needs of Tennesseans and the state's economy. Also, to satisfy the Council on Occupational Education, which is the TCAT's accrediting body, the Office of Academic Affairs has carefully reviewed all proposed program proposals, expansions, modifications. Implementation proposals for each of these programs can be found in your board materials. Slides, and Carol and I tried to get together on this because I'm under a time crunch as assigned by my boss. Slides 3 through 18 include the 29 new program proposals and program expansions. Slide 19 includes the 205 proposals to convert to online delivery in those emergency situations. And slide 20 mentions the 19 program modifications or academic actions. As you can see, these program actions allow the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology to be more responsive to the needs of students, businesses, and industries. We respectfully request the board's approval, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Chancellor.
I do have a comment. As you have often heard me say, we are the speedboat of higher education. This proves that. A lot of these programs are in result of the governor's Tcap waitlist money that he put forward, and we're adding new programs because we have the dollars to do so, but a lot of these are modifications to programs because business and industry have said to us, I've got this and I need you to go do this, and that's what we're doing. So kudos to Tashaka and to Jothany for managing this process because this is a lot. I mean, it is a lot for our campuses to be turning these in to make sure that they are being receptive to business and industry. And it is just being done with precision and correctness, and to get it all to our accrediting body and to you in a timely manner. So kudos to all of you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Nice words. So Dr. Hollins, we too will try to save some time, if I might have the board's permission here. Since we do look at these implementations on a routine basis, and this should be fairly non-controversial, I would propose that we take the terminations, modifications, and new implementations and adopt them by unanimous consent. But if anyone would prefer a roll call vote, we can go that direction too. Any objections to this as a UC item? Hearing none, these are adopted by unanimous consent. Thanks again. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Chancellor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is for you to approve the draft criteria for the next president of Northeast State Community College. The materials were included in your packet, and we are very thankful that Regent Miles Burdine has graciously agreed to serve as another chair for this search. Along with him is Vice Chair Emily Reynolds and Regent Danny Varlin, who have also accepted this assignment as well. We will let you know the other committee members at a future meeting. Academic Search, again, will be in charge of this search for us. And Madam Chair, unless there are any changes, I respectfully ask approval of the proposed criteria for the next president at Northeast State Community College.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the criteria? Hearing none, we need a motion to approve. Miles?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, sir. And a second. Thank you, Regent Varlin. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're putting Mariah back to work.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
Regent Wamp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. In the meantime, Northeast State has done a good bit of work around its strategic plan. And Russ Eaton, I'm coming back to you.
Yes, ma'am. We're in the midst of having all community colleges bring their strategic plans to this board for approval. We have two more today, obviously separate votes, but I'll kind of set the stage, of course, holistically here. Both of these plans, Northeast State and Walters, have been thoroughly vetted. Dr. Tidings and I have met with each president and staff and reviewed them. They are aligned both philosophically and pragmatically with the TBR plan. They include both the plan itself, you'll see a summary here in a moment, as well as the college's mission statement, both of which we will ask for approval by this board. And each president will come present them to you today and happy to answer questions as they go along. And I'll first ask Interim President Dr. Connie Marshall to come introduce her staff and talk about Northeast's plan.
Well, good morning. How is everybody so far? Are you still with me?
We are good. The question is, how are you? And thank you.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for
Thank
asking.
you. We appreciate you stepping up.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Okay, I'll make a face on that one. It's a pleasure. I did want to thank you for allowing us to come today and show you our strategic plan. It's going to be a concise, beautifully written plan. Dr. Susan Graybill is going to show this to you, but let me tell you that it has been a labor of love. It's been an effort. It's been a cross-community, cross our campuses collaboration of work. And all that has been under the leadership of Dr. Susan Graybill, and so I'm going to let her handle it from here.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton and Dr. Marshall, and thank you for this opportunity to present our plan. Northeast State engaged both internal and external partners and constituents in its strategic planning mid-cycle review process, and through this process, we actively sought to assess our progress against our current plan. We also sought to aspire to new heights through broad-based discussions and using TBR's framework as a guide, and to advance the institution through the revision of its plan as appropriate, as well as identification of strategic initiatives to facilitate success. The college implemented its Assess, Aspire, and Advance plan beginning in 2019-2020. As we undertook and implemented this process, TBR's plan and planning processes provided the framework for the college's deliberations. We routinely discussed the importance of dovetailing our plan and our work with TBR's. We also considered THEC's master plan, funding formula, and Quality Assurance Plan, as well as SAC-COC's Principles of Accreditation. The outcome of this process and our deliberations led us to the following affirmations. Northeast State's vision statement continues to describe the future position we envision for the college. You can find our vision and mission statements at the bottom of page 181 of the board's materials. For those regents that are here in person, we also have hard copies of that document if you would like to see those as well. Likewise, the college's mission statement continues to convey Northeast State's uniqueness and identifies the qualities, characteristics, and values that define us. And the institution's 4 goals, which center on access, student success, quality, and resourcefulness, remain appropriate as we aspire to new heights in an ever-changing world. Northeast State's overarching goals and objectives are located on pages 181 and 182 of the meeting materials. Our mid-cycle review processes and deliberations, however, led us to reevaluate some of our strategic objectives and our 2025 targets. Objectives were revised as appropriate, and the Planning Committee is currently finalizing any revisions to our 2025 targets. Our mid-cycle review process also led us to reevaluate the initiatives that we were implementing to achieve our plan. And I'd like to share a few of our initiatives with you in a moment. First, I'd like to discuss how we intend to market our plan. It was important to us that as we marketed our plan, we emphasize how our plan dovetails and support TBR's strategic plan as outlined in TBR's strategic planning executive summary. So we developed a complementary strategic planning executive summary for Northeast State. And this was important to us because we wanted to emphasize our role in supporting TBR and TBR's initiatives. And so both of these documents will be available throughout our campuses. As noted in this document, you will find our vision and mission along with each of our 4 goals and corresponding objectives. You will also find listed some key initiatives that we are implementing or we will implement to help ensure a successful implementation of our plan. Beside each of our initiatives, you will find a key that details a primary TBR category or categories such as open access, completion, and community and workforce development. If it's a primary Northeast State initiative, there's an asterisk beside the initiative. For example, under Goal 1, go ahead and advance it. You'll find Achieving the Dream in Strategic Enrollment Management, which support open access and completion. These 2 specific initiatives will help support all 4 strategic objectives under Goal 1, as well as the overall goal. Under Goal 2, Student Success, you will find an initiative regarding Transfer Liaison. This is a new initiative that we'll implement this fall, in which each academic division will have 1 or more faculty members serving as liaisons with our Tcap and 4-year college partners. This initiative is to help promote the seamless transfer of credit and facilitate student success that we've been talking about this morning. Additionally, you will find our Student Equity Project, in which we are working to train and embed poverty experts at the college to help facilitate the success of our low-income students, which is one of our most significant at-risk student populations at the college. This specific initiative supports all 4 strategic objectives under Goal 2, as well as the goal. Under Goal 3, Quality, an example would be our professional development program for faculty. The Center for Teaching and Learning supports, the Center for Teaching and Learning supports our faculty as they continuously seek to improve things such as pedagogy and accessibility for all students. Additionally, funding is available to support their content-specific professional development. All of these efforts help to directly support Strategic Objective 3.4 on faculty professional development. And finally, under Goal 4, Resourcefulness, we have included an initiative to increase our network monitoring capabilities to guard against ever-changing threats. This supports Strategic Objective 4.1, as well as the overall goal. So in summary, Northeast State is not recommending any revisions to its vision, mission, or its strategic goals. Revisions were made to some strategic objectives and the initiatives we are implementing or will implement to support our plan. Moreover, we are confident that this presentation has exemplified our commitment to our planning processes and to our plan, to our vision, and to our mission. We have a motto at Northeast State. It's, "We're here to get you there." And it is our intent through our strategic plan and through the successful implementation of our plan that we are here to get our constituents there. For example, we're here to get our students to success, whatever success might look like for those students. We're here to help support and facilitate the needs of our community. We're here to support our employees as they're at their work at Northeast State. And we are here to support TBR's strategic plan and its priority missions of access, completion, and community and workforce development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Hearing none, we do need to approve this for Northeast State so that we can be here to get them there. And we'll entertain a motion for approval of the strategic plan. Regent Barland? Oh, and Miles had his mic on. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll move for approval.
Okay, and Regent Barland. Thank you so much. Any comments or discussion? Regent
Just want
Barland.
to say, really a nice job presenting that. Really appreciate the time and work that went into it, and you did a lovely job.
Thank you. Very nice. Anybody else? Hearing none. Mariah, let's call the roll.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green. Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds. Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yes, I just want to publicly thank Dr. Marshall for stepping up for us. She stepped up into this leadership role with a heartbeat's notice and has kept Northeast State steady, calm, and moving forward. She may be like the duck. She looks very calm on the top of the surface of the water, but her feet are paddling like crazy underneath. So thank you so much for what you're doing for us and for the college and the system. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Dr. Marshall. Thank you, Chancellor. We have another strategic plan to consider today, and it's from Walter State, our College of the Year. But Russ, are you going to kick us off?
Nothing else to add, just want to welcome Dr. Mixa to the microphone.
All right, Dr. Mixa, come on down, and congratulations. I know.
Well, I was going to bring it up, but I didn't want to, people are starting to get, kind
No.
of tired of it.
And did any already? No.
Well, it's actually starting to become a little bit of a burden carrying it around, so.
Well, and you wasted no time in getting the news back to the newspaper. I noticed in our clips this morning.
Yes,
I guess it was
yeah.
the online edition. It already run
Yeah.
it. So
Well,
congratulations.
Yeah, actually Senator Sutherland and Representative Eldridge called back to the newspaper, and then as I was walking to my room last night, they called, and so I gave a couple quotes, and then our PR department will start working with them today. I think they've gotten some more stuff out there, so
That's
it's
excellent.
awesome. We're really, I'm flattered. I don't know what to say. Just kind of lost for words when it comes to it. So, okay, we will walk through our strategic plan. You'll hear some similar themes about us and what we've done relative to what Northeast did. We put together a campus committee to reach out and to get feedback. We got feedback from our larger community through our advisory committees, because those are committees that are really invested in the institution. We got feedback from students through surveys, as well as sessions with them and listening to them. And then that committee took that information, brought it together, and what we realized is we needed to start with our vision, and so we built our vision, and we built a mission on top of that. Our vision focuses around the idea of transforming our community through education. Our mission then talks about the idea of how do we do that, which is focusing on the idea of student success. And then also the idea of getting students to be successful through innovative teaching. So from there, then we worked on the next level. We went into our expanded mission. We had an equity and student success statement. And then where a lot of our work sits is where with our 5 strategic planning priorities. So if you can go to the next slide. So if you look at that, we have our vision and our mission there. Our equity statement talks a lot about eliminating barriers for students, all types of students that we have out there. Students have a variety of barriers that we want to eliminate to help them be successful. And then we talked about our student success statement, which revolves around the idea of getting students across the finish line, actually getting them to name what their finish line is, and then getting them there. And then from that point on, we go down and you can see that idea of our strategic planning priorities. We talk about, and I have them written down here because they're a little small for my eyes to see, but the idea of access, student success, equity, quality, and stewardship. So those are the overall things that lead what we do at our institution. And right now is a great time to talk about our strategic plan because we use that when we're building our budget. Because I always try to tell people it's your budget that really guides what you're doing. So everything that we do at our institution when it comes to people doing initiatives or asking for something new at the institution has to cut or go back to these 5 strategic planning priorities. There's some definitions of those. The important things about those definitions is those connect to the TBR strategic plan, which ultimately connects to THEC, connects to the funding formula. And that's how we go ahead and connect up to what's going on at the state and, of course, the funding formula. And then the last thing is we want to make sure our strategic plan isn't something that just gets put up on a shelf. So you can see on that last slide, or last to the right-hand side there, our strategic indicators. And those are the things that we take a look at to measure to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. So we talk about dual enrollment. Are we increasing the matriculation rate of our students in dual enrollment? Our graduation rate. Are we increasing our graduation rates over the years? 12, 24, and 36-hour completion rates. So those are some of the metrics that we're using to measure the success of our strategic plan. That's a big picture idea around it. Any questions around it?
Thanks for saying it's not meant to be on the shelf.
Definitely, it's not meant to be on the shelf. Sure.
Yes, sir.
Does the top come off that trophy?
I don't want to say, because no, yes, it does.
You can drink champagne out of it.
Well, I don't want to say. You know what?
Oh, it fell off last night.
It did fall off. It's when I got it, I was falling asleep last night. I was sitting on the counter, and from the Chicagoland area, I had went to a Blackhawks game when they had walked around with the Stanley Cup one time, and I just kept envisioning them walking, like us walking around, just like the Stanley Cup. So it was kind of fun. So.
You're going to have a great drive back today then. You get to see everybody at home, right?
Well,
So
actually, I got a little bit of a vacation plan. I'm going to go mountain bike in California, but when I get back, yes, I will be walking around with it.
do not put that trophy on a mountain bike.
No, we won't be doing that. We won't be doing that.
Just checking. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Mixon?
Thank you very much.
Hearing none, we do need a motion to approve the Walter State Strategic Plan. Thank you, Regent Barlin, and a second. Thank you, Regent Green. Any further conversation? Hearing none, Mariah, please call the roll. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Bodine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green. Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds. Regent Barlin. Regent Womp.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Tony. Good work. We now will call our Vice Chancellor Blackwood back up. We have some faculty emeriti recommendations to approve.
Great. It is always a wonderful opportunity to present our TBR faculty emeritus who reflect the excellence that is a hallmark of TBR and a commitment to our mission and our students. TBR Faculty Emeritus Policy 5.02.01.10 governs the submission, review, and approval process. College presidents recommend candidates based on distinguished institutional service. Presidents may confer with others, such as a CAO, but this really is the sole discretion of the president. Although there are no specific criteria, the selection is historically based on length of service, significant contribution, outstanding academic achievement, and exceptional embodiment of institutional values. Non-monetary benefits can be afforded at the discretion of the president. Opportunities such as office space, library privileges, or an ID card with their honorary title. Nominations are reviewed by my office, and then it requires chancellor and board approval due to the prestige of the title and the continuing status of representing the college and TBR across the system. The following faculty candidates are being recommended to the board for consideration and approval. You have nomination letters from the presidents in your packet, as well as information around their service and years of service within that organization. But I do want to highlight them by name. We have Phyllis Gottman, Associate Professor of English from Nashville State. John Coons, Associate Professor of Biology from Jackson State. Tim Britt, Associate Professor of Mathematics from Jackson State. Mary Wadley, Associate Professor of Spanish from Jackson State. Bob Raines, Professor of Psychology from Jackson State. Jane David, Professor of Physical Therapist Assistant from Jackson State. Billy Wesson, Professor of Reading from Jackson State. And Carolyn Smith, Associate Professor of Nursing from Jackson State. Again, more information to support these nominations for the president are available for your review. And this time I will ask approval for these outstanding faculty who have served their colleges and TBR well.
2 quick points, if you guys don't mind. Bob Raines, some of us will recall, was a faculty regent here with us. He was an excellent faculty regent, and I had occasion to reach out to him during the pandemic. He had expressed some concerns. You may recall I shared those with the board. I think there is a grandchild, or maybe more than one, that's occupying some of his time now. But that's a loss to us and to Jackson State. He was really terrific to work with. And second of all, what struck me on the Jackson State retirements, 181 years of service to TBR, walking out the door. That is pretty amazing. So they deserve this and more. But that's a lot of institutional knowledge. So please thank them all on our behalf.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Blackwood? We need a motion to approve then these recommendations from our colleges and to honor these folks with faculty emeritus status. Thank you, Regent White. And a second? Thank you, Regent Green. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed. Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is to review and consider President Emeritus status for Dr. Karen Boyer, who of course recently retired from Dyersburg State. All of this is in our materials. You may recall that according to our TBR retirement policy, any president hired prior to September 1, 2002 is eligible to enter an emeritus agreement upon reaching age 60 and serving 10 years as president. Dr. Boyer, given her longevity of service, is the final president eligible for such an agreement. The board, of course, grants emeritus status to other presidents who hit these milestones, but no pay is associated going forward with the honorific. Again, Karen is the last. Under the terms, the president receives 20% of the final salary, exclusive of benefits, in exchange for performing limited duties for the college. And you have in your materials the list of proposed activities that Dr. Cook, our current president, and Dr. Boyer have agreed to. Those include assisting with his transition, continuing, of course, to support the college publicly, and as only Karen can, assisting the Community College Foundation with its further development activity. Should you approve this today, it is retroactive to March 2, which is the day that Dr. Boyer became eligible to return to the payroll. This pay calculation and effort allocation are consistent with other presidents emeritus, and for the remainder of fiscal year 22, this of course is prorated. At the June meeting, as we always do on the annual basis, you will then see a renewal of this contract along with our other presidents emeritus. I did want to note that one of Karen's significant duties going forward, again, should we approve this today, is she will continue to serve as the putter at the annual golf tournament for the Dyersburg State Foundation event each year. So those are big responsibilities, but she does have vast responsibilities in this contract. Unless you guys have any further questions, which I will defer to our general counsel, we do need a motion to approve the contract and her president emeritus status.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Thank you, Regent George. Any further discussion? This does also require a roll call vote.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds. Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Boyer. In keeping with the vein of honoring Dr. Boyer, Chancellor, you're next up.
Absolutely. Dyersburg State Community College has also recommended naming the mathematics building the Dr. Karen A. Boyer Mathematics Building. A naming committee was appointed, and the committee unanimously approved this recommendation brought before you today. Dr. Boyer made significant contributions to Dyersburg State Community College. She served there for 37.5 years as president and was the first female and third president to ever leave the college, which serves Crockett, Dyer, Gibson Lake, Lauderdale, Obion, and Tipton counties. Dr. Boyer was the first female president at any public post-secondary institution in the state of Tennessee, and she is the longest-serving president in the TBR system. After becoming interim president in 1984 and president in 1986, Dr. Boyer led Dyersburg State through significant growth. When she started, the college consisted of only its Dyersburg campus, but Dr. Boyer spearheaded the development of off-campus centers in Covington and Trenton. She was instrumental in opening the Gibson County Center in 1991 and the Jimmy Nathie Center at Tipton County in 1996. Dr. Boyer began the college's first annual fund campaign in 1985, and over the past 36 years, these campaigns have raised approximately $32.9 million. She spearheaded the Dyersburg State Foundation, which was chartered in 1988, and began raising money for an endowment fund that now totals over $9.8 million. There is a special significance in naming the mathematics building in her honor. As a mathematician herself, Dr. Boyer shares the Dyersburg State Math Department's enthusiasm and fascination for the discipline of mathematics. Having taught mathematics, she understands the importance of student success in these courses, and it is only appropriate that the Dyersburg Mathematics Building be named to commemorate her work as Dyersburg State's president and as a mathematics instructor. It is my pleasure to bring you this recommendation, and I would like to now call on Dr. Scott Cook for any comments that he might have.
Thank you, Chancellor, Vice Chair Reynolds, and members of the board. When I arrived at Dyersburg State Community College on January the 4th, this recommendation had already come to my desk from the foundation via our advancement office. Our Vice President for Advancement and External Affairs and I created a committee that included faculty, staff, and members of our foundation to consider the request. And not only was it unanimous, as Dr. Tidings suggested, but it was also a very quick unanimous decision. We believe that this is an honor befitting Dr. Boyer, not only for her 37 and a half years of dedicated service as president to Dyersburg State Community College, but also her 50 years of service to the state of Tennessee, and the fact that she was indeed a math teacher and math professor, not just in Tennessee, but in other parts of the world. Thank you for consideration of this request on behalf of Dyersburg State Community College.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank
Good,
you.
excellent. We're glad to see you in person. Thanks for being here. We have the Chancellor's and Dyersburg State's recommendation. We do need a motion to approve. Regent Powers, Dr. Powers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Elevated today.
Giving out degrees today.
So moved.
Thank you very much. In a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Regent George. Any discussion? Hearing none. Secretary Perry?
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Dr. Cook, keep us posted as you guys, if you have a ceremony on the naming. I'm sure if our West Tennessee folks could make it, they'd love to come up.
We absolutely will.
All right, thank you very much. No, it's a great honor for Karen and one that's well deserved. Thank you. Well, now we have a bit of a bittersweet moment with the retirement of President Jerry Young at the Morristown Tcap. And I'd like to call on Regent Burdine to read our resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Whereas Jerry Young is a native of Sparta, Tennessee, and served 5 years in the United States Navy, he was promoted to Petty Officer First Class and graduated in the top 10% of the Electronics Technicians class, A School, Great Lakes Naval Training Center. Receiving a recommendation from the commanding officer, he was awarded Navy Expeditionary Medal for participation in 3 military campaigns, the Battle Efficiency Medal, Good Conduct Medal, Marksmanship Medal, and 2 Naval Sea Service ribbons. And take a stop right there. Jerry, I just recently learned, see you back there, met with him in his office here recently. We were finishing up the presidential search, and he and I crossed paths in our military service. He was stationed off the coast of Beirut, Lebanon, while I was serving as the United States Marines. So thank you for your service, Jerry. I appreciate that. So they're at a bad time in the history of the Marine Corps, as a matter of fact. Whereas he earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Excelsior College, a master's degree from University of the Cumberlands, and whereas he was employed at the Crossville State Area Vocational Technical School as an electronics technology instructor from 1988 to 2005, served as an active member representing the Tennessee and the International College Electronics Teachers Association Core Curriculum Committee, served as chair of the Tennessee Technology Center Electronics Technology Program Curriculum Committee, was selected as the Tennessee Technology Center Instructor of the Year in year 2000, was a finalist in 2001 for ATEA Outstanding Technical Teacher of the Year, and whereas he served as Assistant Director of the Tennessee Technology Center at Crossville from 2005 to 2014, served as statewide chair for the HVAC Technology and Electronics Technology Curriculum Committees, served as Skills USA Campus Advisor, and served as statewide coordinator for the Dispersing Skills USA Awards. And whereas he served as the director of the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Crossville, from 2014 to 2017, and under his leadership, the college increased student enrollment over 30% within 2 years, increased evening programs, increased dual credit agreements in multiple counties, initiated a capital building project for the addition of a diesel repair technology program, and whereas he served as president of Tcap Morristown from 2017 to 2022, and under his leadership, the Workforce Development Promise Foundation was created, dual enrollment substantially increased in all counties served, multiple full-time programs at satellite campuses and main campuses were added, the Advanced Manufacturing Facility Capital Building Project exceeded $14 million, was completed, funding for property purchase adjacent to the main campus for future expansion was raised, an articulation agreement with Northeast State Community College for the Aviation Maintenance Technology Program was signed,
and school operations were aligned to match the system-wide shared services initiative. In addition, he assisted the Tennessee economic development projects that brought Van Hool, Oshkosh Defense, RMC Advanced Technologies, and Greenworks to the college's service area. And whereas he has completed a Tcap leadership program and served as numerous leadership roles with the Tennessee Board of Regents system through his service on several sub-councils and committees. Whereas he demonstrated his commitment to students throughout his career, served as a volunteer Tennessee Promise mentor, exhibited the attributes of a true Skills USA champion by supporting and encouraging participation among students and advisors alike, inspired student leaderships on the campus, and promoted membership of the National Technical Honor Society, and whereas he shall be missed by colleagues, faculty, staff, students, and alumni of TCAT's Morristown and Crossville, community leaders, and the Tennessee Board of Regents and its staff. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents gratefully expresses sincere appreciation to Mr. Jerry Young for his outstanding contributions and leadership to the system, and particularly his students, and wishes him well, the very best in his retirement.
Are you offering, oh, sorry. Jerry, make your way to the front while we take care of a little business here. Thank you, Regent Burdine. Are you offering your resolution in the form of a motion?
I am. So moved.
And I bet I have a second coming, and a second from Regent Barlin. Any discussion? Go ahead, Danny.
I'm so happy that you're getting to retire, Jared, that we are going to miss you so much. You have done an amazing job. Besides all the accolades that you have received, you are just a really nice person. And everybody that knows you, that's kind of at the top of the list because you are just a good man. And we're so grateful and thankful that you accepted the responsibilities and have provided the leadership for TBR at the institutions where you have worked. And you've mentored so many people in learning how to be a good person. So I just want to say personally, thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure to be your friend, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
Chancellor?
I want to echo everything that Regent Barlin has just said. You are truly an incredible individual and a pleasure to work with. And when he called me to tell me he was retiring, my immediate thing was that I screamed no, because he's too young to do that. First of all, we don't want to see him go. I will share that he's done an incredible job of working with his staff and making sure that everything is going to be left in great order, and that is all we could ever ask of a great leader. So thank you so much for all that you've done, for the friendship and just the great strides that you've made at Tcap Morristown during the time that you've been there. You've turned it into an incredible institution.
Thank you.
Both of you beautifully said. Regent Reed?
Thank you for the opportunity. If it wasn't for Jerry, I wouldn't be with TCAS. So Jerry hired me. So thank you for the opportunity.
That is excellent. We thank you. Well done. Good hire. If you don't mind standing by for one more moment after all these beautiful comments, if there is no further discussion, we do need a quick roll call vote. So Mariah, take us through.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds. Regent Barlin. Regent Wamp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. And President Young, I will tell you that what the Chancellor said about her reaction is accurate. I was her next call. So it was not a happy day. But as Danny said, we are all very happy for you. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor, members of the board, and my colleagues, and I would say friends, because that's what I consider everybody. And I went to Dr. Blackwood's School of Time Management, so I'll be quick. I can say that the old saying that love what you do and you never work a day in your life is true. I think I told Carol Pierre one time that she was on the campus in Crossville, and I said, Carol, I've never had a bad day. But I think the part of that we all miss is what makes that so easy is when you surround yourself with exceptional people. And I've been blessed to be surrounded by exceptional people. My wife of 41 years is at home listening today, and she's truly exceptional and kept me on track and has supported me. The folks at Crossville, they were tremendous, super people. You're fixing to meet an exceptional Morristown person. Members of the board, I think we all forget sometimes of the difference we make in an individual life. And our students are really the ones that I pull inspiration from. During the pandemic, to watch them continue to do what they needed to do to try to improve their lives truly inspired me. They were willing to do whatever it took to make their lives better. And that's what we do each and every day. We make other people's lives better. As a child, I read a lot of Robert Louis Stevenson, and they said that in his life when he was a young man, his caretaker went upstairs to tell him to go to bed one night, and he was looking out the window. And she said, are you watching the lighters light the lamps? And he said, no, ma'am, I'm watching them cut holes in the darkness. And with education, that's what we do. So this would have been a whole lot easier online, but I am glad I got to see everyone. So thank you. I have been blessed, and I will continue to pray for the board and everybody and all of our students. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Beautifully said. I do have one question for you, President Young. Are you joining Danny Gibbs on his cruise?
The reason that I left 2 months before him, I needed 2 months to practice my golf game just to be able to play with him.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, thank you for everything. Well, and he referenced that we are about to meet an outstanding member of his team. Chancellor Tidings, make your recommendation for the next president at Morristown.
Absolutely, thank you. And I will say this is about the only thing that made it palatable that we are saying goodbye to Jerry today, and that is because we do have an incredible candidate to recommend to come in as the president. You approved the search criteria for Tcap Morristown in December of 2021 at our board meeting. Our search was chaired by Regent Miles Burdine, who I did share with you has been doing triple duty on chairing our searches lately. The search advisory committee included Regent Joey Hatch and Danny Barlin, who's also been doing triple duty on our searches, and also representatives of the faculty, staff, students, and alumni, and local civic and industry leaders. Their time and dedication to this search was impeccable, and a very special thanks goes to them for their commitment and support in this very important presidential search. I also want to thank Associate Vice Chancellor April Preston and Carol Tomlinson, whom, as I shared with y'all last night at SOAR, Carol not only planned SOAR, but she has been overseeing all of our Tcap searches as well, and has been doing a great job in coordination. After careful review of the applicants, interviews, and input from the Search Advisory Committee, Madam Chair, I am very pleased to recommend to you Ms. Suzanne Cox as the next president of Tcap Murfreesboro.
No,
Morristown, I'm sorry. It says Nashville here, and I knew I couldn't say that, so let me, excuse me. Excuse me for my notes being off. Suzanne earned a master's degree of education in instructional leadership with concentration in career and technical education at Tennessee State University and a Bachelor of Science degree in organizational management at Tusculum University. She has been on the staff at Tcap Morristown since 1990, joining the college as a bookstore clerk and assistant to the president for 10 years before being appointed business office manager in 2000. From 2010 to 2012, she served as a Student Services Support Associate, followed by service as Financial Aid Coordinator from 12 to 14, when she was appointed the college's Vice President. Madam Chair, I'd like to call on Committee Chair Miles Burdine for his comments.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Chancellor. You heard Jerry talk about surrounding himself with good people as one of the secrets to his success, and he obviously did that with Suzanne. And during the search committee, I noticed, I'm going to read the notes here in just a minute, but during the search committee process, those of you served in one of those search committees, there's always faculty and staff on the committee, and I could just feel, see, and feel positive comments and the positive attitude that was within the faculty and staff about wanting Suzanne to have this job, and made me feel good. And you heard the chancellor say she's been working there over 30 years. That's just amazing. That's just sincerely amazing. So, Jerry, good job. So Ms. Cox was one of 2 finalists chosen by the Presidential Search Advisory Committee from 12 applicants from around the country. The search committee held its first meeting on January 10th. 4 candidates were interviewed on February the 14th. As a result of the interviews, 2 candidates were brought forward to participate in on-campus and open forum interviews on March the 14th. Madam Chair, it's my sincere pleasure to serve as the chair of this search committee. I support Chancellor Tidings' recommendation and therefore make a motion to hire Ms. Suzanne Cox as the next president of Tcap Morristown.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. We need a second. Any comments?
Well, I have to have something to say, but Susie, I just want to piggyback on top of Regent Burdine's comments in terms of how excited the staff and faculty that were participating in this search. They love you. You are beloved, and that was so evident that there was, very few times do you see a situation where everybody feels the same way about someone, and you have spent 30 years creating a family there that absolutely loves and supports you. So congratulations, and you absolutely deserve to have this opportunity.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, Regent Hatch?
Yes, I'll weigh in on and say ditto and ditto to what's been said. And Suzanne, what I could feel, even though we weren't in person on the Zoom call, was that you were the right candidate, and everybody that knew you in Morristown felt that way. So you've obviously done a great job and embraced that community. So congratulations.
Thank you all. Any further discussion? Hearing none, our final roll call vote of the day.
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent George.
Aye.
Regent Gill.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Hatch.
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher.
Aye.
Regent Powers.
Aye.
Regent Reed.
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Barlin.
Yes.
Regent Womp.
Aye.
And Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Suzanne, congratulations. Come forward. Would you like to make a comment?
Good afternoon, I think it is now. I want to extend my sincere, deepest appreciation and gratitude to Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, members of the board, the search committee for this opportunity. I never imagined when I started as bookstore clerk in 1990, almost 32 years ago, that I would become the college president. It's such a wonderful opportunity. We have a great team at Tcap Morristown, and it really is a family. I've enjoyed my time there. They are just wonderful people like Jerry. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank Jerry personally for his mentorship, his leadership, and just his friendship to me in my life. The 5 years he's been there, we've made a great team. And I hope to continue to maintain our friendship as he retires. One of the things that I described in my interview was I truly have a passion for technical education and for seeing students succeed, families succeed,
and my community to succeed. So I'm really excited about continuing the great things at Tcap Morristown and moving the college forward. I'm looking really forward to it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Well said. So Suzanne, 32 years down, 32 more years to go. So thank you very much. Congratulations. Chancellor, we are close to adjournment. Do you have some announcements for us?
No, other than thank you all for the great job that everybody's been doing. We so appreciate each of you being here today. We appreciate those of you that were able to attend last night, and we look forward to our 50th celebration in June. So
That'll
thank you
be
very
fun
much.
at Columbia State. One additional acknowledgement from last night is we also had the opportunity to celebrate one of our own, our Volunteer of the Year, Regent Danny Varlin. I thought she was going to bring her award this morning and put. Okay, oh, it's close by. It's close by. I'm glad it's close by. Thank you for all you do, friend. We appreciate you. And of course, to the team for once again getting us organized this morning, much appreciated. I gather there are box lunches at the back for folks, so feel free to stay and have that here with us. Be very careful going home, and we look forward to seeing you. And oh, of course, I'm so sorry.
I just want to say something about the SOAR Awards. You know, I did not get to participate in everything during the SOAR Awards this week, but I did come down with Danny on Monday, and we spent Tuesday morning judging. And I'll tell you, I would encourage all the regents, if you have the time next year to participate in that. I came away with an even better appreciation. I got to help judge staff, and any one of those six deserved to be the winner. I didn't get to pick the winner and got to vote, but any one of those six should have won, could have won. But I felt so good about what I was hearing and what I was seeing, because the passion inside each one of those individuals was very, very obvious that they truly wanted to help our students to succeed. So we hear it all the time in here, but to see it and experience it from those in the staff level was greatly appreciated. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for encouraging me to do it. So.
Oh, thanks for adding that and for taking the time again. Danny?
Can I say, I got to judge on the student awards. Let me tell you, every student had a story about faculty or administration or somebody in their college that helped them. It was so emotional, and it was so, it's the why. That's why you need to do it, because it's the why of why we do this. And I was the only TBR person in the judging panel, so the rest of the people got to hear, and they're not as aware, not only the student story, but their stories about the people that helped them. And I was so proud of everything that was said, and if you just need to sometimes be reminded, I think Governor Lee, I told Brandon last night, Governor Lee needs to be able to sit on this so he can see where the rubber meets the road for all his hard work. So I definitely suggest that it's a great thing to do.
Any comments? Regent Shelton?
Yes, I was on the faculty committee.
Oh, good.
And I have to admit that pretty much all six of the faculty, the 3 Tcap and the 3 community college, they moved all of us on the judging panel. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to do, to try to pick the best of the best in this. And as I told Regent Varlin earlier, some of them teared up, and nobody cries alone in my presence. So that was really hard, and I am not a pretty crier. So, but it really was something that, go ahead and put me on the list for next year. I really enjoyed that.
Excellent. Regent Gill?
Yeah, it's good to be back together.
Pardon?
It's good to be back together.
Yes.
A lot of sacrifices made in the last couple of years by having to be apart. And one of those sacrifices was that the board ceased receiving their compensation and the pads and the pens. So thank you again, we're being restored. But also we get some hand cleaner and some candy and a thing of water. So I personally am very grateful for the raise.
Thank you. I think that may wrap it up for us today. Thanks to you all. Be very careful going home. We will do this again in June, which will be here before we know it. But if there are no objections, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.